folks, I know there's a history here. I'd like to get this hearing in today. You know, everybody needs to just focus on the relevant facts, okay? I know there's a history here.
Are you talking up by Sunset Mart? Up the hill by the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you?
What is up, Truth and Transparency? Good morning, Monday morning.
All right, who's responsible here?
What's that?
Who's responsible here? Whose house is this?
I'm responsible here.
Yeah, have been drinking or anything, right?
No.
Okay, drive careful, okay?
Will do, thank you.
This is with the other group that ran away.
Oh, really? You just ditched it? Awesome.
Yeah, those ones kept walking in the car. And the other ones.
Make yourself known.
It's truly for the win.
Oh, it's midnight there? Damn. Oh, Northern Cali, it's early for you guys. Top of the morning. Ann Taylor just literally in company blowing up the FBI spot and the Moscow Police Department spot, as well as Pennsylvania. Today we're going to be talking hella about Google. We're going to give CVS a call today, guys.
Discs. Okay? They all knew about it.
CVS, I want to talk about your receipts. Can you read me back a CVS receipt? Go use my care card. I'm feeling some type of way.
We're not here to talk about the alcohol stuff, okay?
Okay, yeah.
But this is the second noise complaint we've had here tonight within 2 hours.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
I noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there.
Yeah.
Nothing against having a party. Once neighbors start calling in, then we have an issue.
All right, guys, what is up? Good morning. Wake your asses up a little bit. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Why isn't mainstream media talking about this? What's going on? You go watch mainstream media, you get a 1 minute and 29-second clip. The defense team files a Franks and motions to suppress. They want to suppress evidence that shows Bryan Kohberger is guilty. In other news, that's what you get. If you don't believe me, check it out. Again, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Miss Potts. Good morning. Well, let's add to the stage here. Hector, Google warrants. So, gonna jump right into it again. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. I had a fabulous weekend. Thank you for asking. I'm going to jump here because I'm going to come back, but the way that they were listed, I'm going to jump and I want to actually talk about Google first, and I'm going to go back to Amazon and show you guys something, but I want to start off with a pretty big bang here. Okay. Well, in case you guys are unaware, Moscow Police Department was working with the FBI, right? In case you guys are unaware, the FBI was attempting to put together a federal grand jury to what seems like possibly try to indict Bryan Kohberger, but not really, you know. I think it was used to get information. But there is a big but here, all right? There are rules, aka laws, aka you can't do things as much as you want to just do whatever the hell you want to do. You can, but if you get caught, you're in big trouble. Okay. And so what I kind of see here in the Google, and this is going to be a big bomb here, is that the FBI, as well as Moscow Police Department, as well as Pennsylvania State Police, they got caught here with their hands in the cookie jar, okay, because they're stupid. We're going to show you how stupid they are. And I have no problem saying that they're stupid because they were copy and pasting, how to type up warrants. And Mowry and Payne and Blaker didn't cut, copy, and paste properly. And because they didn't cut, copy, and paste properly, it was obvious that certain things were being done because they didn't get rid of some language that they were supposed to. And as you can see here with Google, this is with Bryan Kohberger's Google stuff. Okay, not like all the search warrants we're talking about, but the first time that they attempted, the Moscow Police Department attempted to go and get anything associated with Bryan Kohberger in Google was January 3rd. Okay. Then they did this is warrant 2 is January 23rd. And then they did warrant 3 on February 24th. Now, these are the facts associated with what Mr. Brett, or I'm sorry, I don't remember if it was Jay that wrote this up or who ended up having this one. Let's see. Who signed this one? Oh, there you go. Oh, good. It's Elisa. Yeah, it's Mathis. So let's talk about it. She's saying this is the facts associated with how they got these 3 Google search warrants. Now, facts. Pennsylvania law enforcement, along with officers from Idaho and the FBI, arrested Mr. Kohberger on December 30th, 2022. Subsequent to Mr. Kohberger's arrest, many warrants were executed. On January 3rd, 2023, Moscow Police Detective Mowry began work on Google warrants. He obtained Google Warrant 1 on January 3rd, 2023. That is this warrant right here. And it is subject to the Franks. Okay? And so Google Warrant number 1, January 3rd, they were looking for all data available in a Google account in connection with email Bryan Christopher 1994 at Gmail, plus 2 phone numbers and an IMEI number. Then on January 25th, which is not in the list, the summary that we all have and can get to, that warrant number 2 here is missing. So we can't even see warrant 2. So on January 25th, that's when warrant 2, Mowry obtained a Google warrant number 2 here, a search warrant for all data available in a Google account in connection with, now, he spells it really interesting, user name, user 1 name, username. That's what we've come up with over here. But so where this account came from, we're about to find out. Well, no specific nexus is mentioned in the second warrant for the new email account other than it was identified. Okay, so where'd this come from? Well, no specific nexus. Remember this big word nexus? Like, what the fuck? You're going to have to show a nexus to, not a Lexus, guys, but a nexus. Like, what's the relevance of this? Where did you get this from? Okay. So no specific nexus is mentioned in the second warrant for the new email account other than it was identified. Then on February 24th, 2023, Mowry obtained Google Warrant 3 seeking all data available in relation to Mr. Kohberger. No reference is made in the affidavit to a nexus between Mr. Kohberger and now BK5781 at gmail.com. Google Warrant 3 adds the email account BK5781 at desales.edu, which we're going to talk a lot about because that's not that's not considered a personal email. That's considered a school issued email, which is totally fucking different. And good luck, Chuck, because you have to get that that's like school records. Okay. That's school. That's college material. So, and here she says Google 3, they added this to sales without explanation. And when it's saying seeing these exhibits, because that's part of like the Franks, and that's in those exhibits. The warrants have no limiting language in the search and no justification for duplication. Now, what I mean by that, what she means by that, because I didn't write it, but I went ahead and I'm going to show you guys. So remember how these were redacted back in the day? So this is warrant number 1 and Bryan Christopher 1994 at Gmail. Then you have the 2 phone numbers. Then you have the IME number. Okay. That's the stuff that would have been, redacted, as well as then you have the description of the return of property. Okay. And so what I believe, and this is just my using just a little bit of my brain here, is that where they came up with this email address, in my opinion, is because they were asking for recovery emails addresses. And I believe it came up as one of the recovery emails. That's where I believe that they got this off of warrant 1 as a return. Okay. So again, this was January 3rd. Then we don't have January 23rd. It's missing. But then we do have February 24th. And then in this one. So again, they went for duplicate because you already got it. So why are you then asking for it again? So all of these. But in this one, there was no mention of the DeSales email, but it was put in as something that you were looking for. But there was no return on that. Now, we have to point this out because it's really, really good. Now, this is all happening after the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. Do you guys remember Bryan Kohberger gets arrested and then Ann Taylor immediately, she's down at that house, but more importantly, she's asking for discovery. She's immediately on it. Like, here's the discovery. And then she starts going with supplemental request 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Right off the rip, she wanted the search warrants. She wanted everything to do with the search warrants. And in fact, she wanted the audio. And at first, Bill, Buffalo, Thompson, backseat, B team, Bill Thompson, said that he didn't turn over any audio associated with obtaining these search warrants. And then lo and behold, didn't realize that they had sent an index with a CD that said SW audio search warrant. But here, check this out. So we are down here. She wants to point out to the judge that this is particularly noteworthy because email communication between Mowry and Google on January 4th. So he's in like a chat. There's some type of chat going on between Mowry and Google on January 4th. And it referenced Google not producing data on non-personal accounts. Okay. And then Mowry indicates they, as in DeSales, are going to be able help us with their end of the process. So that should be taken care of. Yet, somehow, some way, this email address found its way into Google Warrant 3 without any nexus or explanation when it came back on February 24, 2022. I'm sorry, that's Google search warrant number 3. Now, the information in the warrants was cut and pasted from an affidavit originally bearing the signature of Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker. So they're using Blaker's affidavit, Exhibit A, his. At other times, Corporal Payne, and now Mowry. So now we're just using all 3 and we're copy pasting. The Google specific information in Google Warrant 1 referenced, this is what they did not take out, and this is how they got caught. So in Google number 1, the Google specific information in Google Warrant 1 referenced the United States and government, as well as the search of a phone for single decedent. That is, i.e., looking for the location of a decedent, a dead person's location. Okay? Indicating it was cut and pasted without edits. This is how they got caught. Google Warrants 2 and 3 removed the United States language reference to the government and the single decedent language. Now, Annie Potts is going to want to tell you that they were the FBI. So the FBI is doing their own thing. Okay. And so the FBI, when they're doing their requests and their subpoenas and what they're producing for their grand jury, at one point, because of this, written right like this, at one point the FBI was trying to figure out and comparing Bryan Kohberger's locations next to somebody else's, and it happens to be a dead person. So these are the people that you have to choose from. One of the 4 victims or Kopaka. Moscow Police Department not removing this language got them caught. Now, I want to show you something. Ready? What's up, RM? What's up? Good morning. Ready for this fucking bomb drop? Now, it's kind of early, but I'm going to fucking do it because it's fucking powerful. I went and pulled out order to seal and redact May 31st, 2023 for Google. Because I remember that Ann Taylor be asking for all this shit and they're just not giving Ann Taylor what she wants. And Bill's over there like, it doesn't exist, Well, right here, the basic facts Mowry used to support the searches for Google. He used the arrest affidavit, basically that 19 pages that we all have seen, with these additions. So this is the additions. Ready? Number 1, details about Google as a company and what it stores based on Mowry's personal knowledge. Well, what does Mowry personally know about how Google and its company stores it? Like, I just think that that's hilarious because wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Give me some time. Karen, what is good, baby? Karen, just in time for the biggest bomb drop. Number 2, a request for any, you guys love my little notes, any, asking for any associated, for any accounts associated with Kohberger for any time periods. You think you could just do that? Out of your mind. And then number 3, big number 3 here. Kohberger was observed entering a CVS in Pennsylvania on December 16th, 2022. And his email account, Bryan Christopher 1994 at gmail.com, and phone number was somehow obtained by law enforcement. Number 4, for Google Warrant 2, January 24th, a new email is referenced as having been found in Google Warrant 1 data return, which is this. This is what I'm saying. I believe that this was a recovery email. And then number 5, also added was a high probability of a VPN was identified in Google Return 1/3/2023, see Exhibit B. And then for Google Warrant 3, a new email to sales is incorporated into the third warrant without any supporting explanation. Now, here it is. What day was Google Warrant 3 issued? He went and obtained it on February 24th. Now, here it is. This is why Anne couldn't get her shit. Motion for extension to return search warrant. Well, the warrant was served by Detective Lawrence Mowry on February 25th, a day or two after he got it, through the Google Law Enforcement Portal. As of February 27th, 2023, Forensic Detective Mowry is out of state, attending a forensic training for approximately 3 weeks. You guys remember when he testified, right? Okay. His training and experience, motherfucker had to get up on a plane after he serves this search warrant, but this is what's funny. And now he's just going to be gone for 3 weeks. But guess what? It didn't stop Detective Payne ever during the course of this investigation going and retrieving the information and doing something with it, right? Like he's done so many fucking times, all right? So, you can't get anything past me. So, this man, now I'm thinking to myself, why aren't they just having Payne go in there like he's been, taking the information, uploading it, and having it as a return, give it to the courts, right? Well, if I do all that, then who's going to have access to it? Who can have quicker access to it? Ann Taylor can have quicker access to it, right? So we're not going to do anything like that. Now, mind you, this is for Warrant 3's returns. Warrant 3's returns. And so instead, this guy has to go on a 3-week training. Now, this is in the middle of his highest, biggest profile case ever, that he is supposed to be, Mr. Detective here. And he's got to go do a 3-week training, okay, so that he can get his happy ass up on that grand jury, that secret grand jury that's coming up that they're planning the whole fucking time. We need Mowry to go do a couple things. So here, we're going to leave all of this information. No one's going to touch it. We're going to ask to have more time to just download it and put it in like we're supposed to. Here, we're going to give it and serve it back to the courts as what's been returned, right? So instead, though, here, as of February 27th, Forensic Detective Mowry is out of state attending a forensic training for approximately 3 weeks. Detective Mowry is unable to download any return until his return to the Moscow Police Department. Okay. Okay. And the forensic lab, therefore, as of this date, the information provided by Google has not been downloaded. Well, when I went back and saw all this shit, Kohberger was observed entering a CVS in Pennsylvania on December 16th. They are surveying Mr. Kohberger in Pennsylvania, okay? They had tabs on this man back when he was in Idaho. They've known about him. They did this whole investigation off of the IGG, okay? And then they had to work backwards, like I've been telling you. But I said, wait a second. if Ann Taylor could have gotten this back faster, right? Is there a chance that CVS would have still had camera footage to see how these, just because Bryan Kohberger, like how are you putting this in a search warrant and this has anything to do with getting something? Bryan Kohberger was observed entering a CVS in Pennsylvania on December 16, 2022. And his email account right here and phone number was somehow obtained by law enforcement. How the fuck? What the fuck? So I'm over here like, did they wait for Bryan Kohberger to leave? Okay. And then did they then go into the CVS and say, hey, we need that guy's, hey, that guy that just came in here and just paid or whatever. He's been going around. I think he might have been stealing stuff. Somebody we got a call about. I mean, can you tell us who that guy is? I mean, where did Bryan just throw away his CVS receipt? What's on your CVS receipt? But I'm over here because I try to be like 90 steps ahead. But if they did anything shady, they wouldn't want Ann Taylor to be able to go and get the cameras at the CVS, and they would want to wait for an extended period of time so that the cameras would have been recorded over. So I said, I want to call CVS and I want to ask them, first of all, do you put email addresses? Do you have the care card, a whole number on their email addresses? Who's got a CVS receipt on them right now? The hell is my shit over here? So I said, fuck it. I'm going to call CVS, and I got some questions for CVS. Because I just can't, for the life of me, I can't for the life of me think that, okay, on my receipts, they normally like black the last parts of things out. So, but I'm also over here saying, why in the world are they even mentioning this in order to get this Google search warrant? Why are you talking about this? This has to have some significance. You're not going to mention this and talk about this as a reason and how you're able to get this search warrant, because you're clearly basically telling me that you obtained this from CVS and the number from CVS. But how? How did you do it? And this should tell all of you people, right? What does this tell us right now? You've been following Bryan Kohberger. Like, you have been literally, it's saying that the word observed. Kohberger was observed entering a CVS. That's not like, well, we used his care card. That's how we knew that he went there that day. No. Kohberger was observed entering a CVS. And so this is the person that did the affidavit. Did you observe him? No, probably not, right? Was Mowry there? Maybe he was there. Who the fuck knows? But what did you do with CVS in order to get that? Just because he went into CVS, it doesn't say, CVS doesn't shout over the loudspeaker, care card number 56321. They've entered the building. Their email address is, their phone number is, oh, here's somebody else that's entering. Oh, we have another care card customer. Like, what does him entering CVS on December 16th have anything to do with obtaining this warrant? It's just somehow we obtained this email address. So then I said to myself, wow, when you go get your care cards, how long ago did you guys get a CVS care card? Hella long ago, right? Shit, if I was to go look at my CVS care card and what email address is on that shit, it's probably something that I had in freaking college, or I would say, yeah, probably something I used in college. So you obtained an email address from his care card and the phone number that was associated with his account. How'd you do that? How does Bryan Kohberger walking into a CVS give you a new email address and a new telephone number. CVS shouldn't be handing over any information without a warrant, right? And then so I said, well, I know CVS, they have hella cameras up in those mofos. So I'm going to call CVS right now. And I got some questions for CVS. I want to know, what do you guys put on the care cards? Is my email on there? Is my phone number on there? And how long do you keep your cameras? What if somebody came into the store after I left and wanted information saying, oh, can you please pull up the last person that was just here? I swear they just hit my car in the parking lot. Who was that person? They were parked right next to me and they just hit my car in the parking lot. I need, who are they? I tried to get them to stop and they wouldn't. Can I get their information? You don't think that cops would do shit like this? And then what does CVS do? Oh my God, yeah. Look, can you see if he used his care card? Can you see if there's a name on that account? Can I get his email address so I can email him and ask him why he just hit and ran? What would you do if you worked at CVS and someone said this to you? Oh my God, are you serious? Oh God. Yeah, let me take a look. All that would have been on camera, right? Well, we have to now the cops need to know how long CVS goes until their cameras are wrote over, right? Recorded back over. And this is what should tell you guys everything. On December 16th, they didn't have enough to go get a CVS warrant, just to go get a warrant. Why didn't they go and try to get one? This is wild. And then I saw this and I said, Jesus. I said, oh, look at this. Maori. We can't return this. Details about Google as a company and what it stores. Here we go. For Google Warrant 3, a new email that was given is incorporated into the third warrant without any supportive explanation. It is just wild. This is wild to me. So the FBI is conducting all their shit, right? Well, let me tell you what you can't do. Okay. Now, this is the issues that Bryan's team takes with everything. So the issue number one is that, hey, this affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant recklessly or intentionally omitted material information. That's number one. And then there's cases that we've talked about. Issue number two is the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrants included information that must be ixnayed, like bye-bye. And why? Well, because of this. Number one, A, the big daddy, which is all information in the affidavit was gathered because of law enforcement's unconstitutional use of investigative genetic genealogy. And thus, nothing in the warrant should remain. How did you get the name Bryan Kohberger? What came first, the car or IgG? Mr. Kohberger has argued in a separate motion that the genetic genealogy investigation in this matter was done in violation of the Constitution. Additionally, he argues that there would be no investigation into him without that original Constitution violation. It is not that the results of the IGG sped up the investigation. No, instead, they focused the investigation on Mr. Kohberger, a person whose only connection to the case was his mode of transportation and the shape of his eyebrows. Two identifications of little to no value. Again, you're going to be reading a shit ton more if we were able to see that, Franks. As the Idaho Supreme Court has explained, while the initial burden in showing a factual nexus between the illegality and the evidence, the state must show it would have been discovered anyway. And I am asking everybody, like I've done for a very long time, which is, how did you get to Bryan Kohberger? And if you take away investigative genetic genealogy, you take that away because that's the tip that the FBI just said, hey, here, Bryan Kohberger, go investigate. Here's the tip. And the tip is Bryan Kohberger. What? And if they did, if everything was so on the up and up, why not put that in the warrants? Oh, because you can't do that. Why not say that you got information from a federal grand jury? Oh, because you can't do that. You cannot use a federal grand jury, the subpoenas, the returns of them, anything, to then put into your for your search warrants for the state. You cannot do that. Like when I say like you cannot do that, like that's like it's against the law. You're violating. You have to. First of all, in order to do that, you'd have to get a court order, which never happened in this case. Why wouldn't you just go get a court order? Why do you have to do all of this bullshit? Why wouldn't you go get a court order? What if they didn't use IGG? What if they're just hiding behind IGG? How about that? You guys want to talk about that? Because it's time to. Because what I heard in Indiana, holy shit. Indiana wouldn't even dare use investigative genetic genealogy because it's shit, according to Indiana 18-year-old or 18-year veteran expert, whatever the fuck her name was. No, not her. The state cannot make this showing without IGG. There is no case. You must show that you would be able to discover it anyways. Please explain to me how you would have came across Bryan Kohberger. Explain to me how the 3 to 4 other unknown DNAs don't matter in that house. Explain to me why you wouldn't think that this could have been done by multiple people. Notice of filing declaration of Becca Barlow in support of defendant's third motion to compel. Okay. While this is all going on, and the state and the FBI are squirming and trying to figure out everything, how to do this, because Ann Taylor, they realized she figured it out. They figured it out, guys. Fuck. What are we going to do? They were losing their shit over there. And why do you think Bill Thompson had no problem giving him 6 months we'll go ahead and have a preliminary hearing in 6 months? Yeah, because he was shitting his pants. Billy Boy was. But here we go. This was filed on the 22nd of June. All right. But it was known well earlier, but the only reason that they had to file this all at that point in June of 2023 is because after they went ahead and did grand jury to indict Bryan Kohberger, then they could go ahead and I guess we can file all this stuff now. Okay. But let's remind ourselves why Bicca Barlow was hired in this case. Bicca Barlow was hired in this case. I was requested by counsel in this case to assist in determining the scope of DNA discovery necessary for defending this case, including any genetic genealogy that was used. Part of this assignment was to identify potential expert, witness, and legal issues that might arise from the use of genetic genealogy in particular. I have reviewed the material provided to the defense in this case regarding the DNA testing done, as well as numerous news articles regarding this case and the government's motion for protective order filed on June 16th, 2023. Well, I'm thinking to myself, well, what was still outstanding in June 16th? Like, what could she not have been privy to? Because, we have Maury just not putting, his shit in. He's on 3 weeks to go train. He's training. Excuse us. He's training. Okay. So I'm informed and believe via news reports that in this case, Mr. Kohberger was initially identified as a possible suspect via a new methodology called investigative or forensic genetic genealogy. Herein will be referred to as IgG. Okay. Now, based on her review, because she knows the methods, I am familiar with methods used to conduct IgG searches in criminal cases. I have been retained in other jurisdictions on cases involving this type of search and have received and reviewed reports generated by the private company that conducted both the testing itself and the construction of the family tree that led to the identification of the defendant in those matters. Based on my review of that material, I am informed and believe that the use of these databases does not necessarily lead to a single individual as a potential suspect. The testing conducted by the private lab, remind you guys, in Indiana, this woman that was on the stand who runs the lab in Indiana State Police Lab, she said, we don't conduct this stuff. This stuff is basically garbage in, garbage out type shit, okay? She wanted nothing to do with testing the new methods to test rootless hair, okay? And that you can be doing new methods with what the FBI could do. She wanted no part of that in Indiana. She says her lab doesn't do that stuff. We've never used investigative genetic genealogy to solve one of our cases. That's what she said on the stand. And I think Jen O'Shea, or however she says her last name, she about choked on her spit because she's like, wait, what? You don't know about cases that have been solved this way? And I think her key thing was to say, well, not our lab, So the private labs do not generate a profile, you guys. The private labs do not generate a profile in the same way that forensic labs do. And there cannot be a direct comparison between the data obtained in this case by the Idaho State Police Crime Lab and the private lab. And now I'm saying to myself, wow, this is interesting because this is exactly what this woman in Indiana was pretty much saying on the stand during the Richard Allen case. All right. That we don't do this. Well, aren't there private labs that do it? Jen says on Cross. Yes, there's third-party labs that do things. Okay. The ISP lab had conducted what is typically called STR-based testing, which results in a profile that can be uploaded to the state and federal CODIS databases. IgG labs use a different technology where individual SNPs, SNPs, okay, they are sequenced. The SNP and STR data cannot be directly compared. Once the IgG lab completes its testing, the SNP data is uploaded to a genetic genealogy database. Okay. That contains similar data from other individuals. So it's like, hey, I'm going to go upload my my SNP to, they call it a kit, to a database like GEDmatch, where anybody that's using these third-party sites, you can then take your data and upload it into a mega database. All right. But when you do that, you can click to opt out of law enforcement being able to see your profile, see your data. I'm aware of only one other website that allows law enforcement searches. Most websites, such as 23andMe, does not allow use of their data by law enforcement and are used by most people for ancestry research. Data is compared within the database and possible relatives are identified. The determination of who is or is not a relative is subjective and based on the length of DNA shared between two individuals. Now, what if Bryan Kohberger uploaded his own DNA to the database? What kind of hit would you then get? If you then go ahead and you put in, so the FBI has this sheath and they do SNPs and boom, here we go. And we go ahead and we upload this. What would happen? Oh, thank you. What would happen? What would happen? It'd be a direct hit. It would be like, bitch, we already have this in here. Here you go. Wait, this is like, wait, what? Or depending on what part of the SNP sequencing you took, it would look like Bryan Kohberger was your brother. Okay. So, but here, Bryan Kohberger's information, so then there really wasn't like this tree, right? Very minimal. But here, you actually use Bryan Kohberger's, when they say that like you didn't have his permission, he didn't just discard it. It's not garbage. All right. So this is subjective and based on the length of the DNA shared between the individuals. The comparison is such a database do not yield an identification of someone identical to the uploaded SNP data. Okay. Rather, it would identify possibly relatives who might be in the database. Well, unless, right? Unless I have like, think about that. But she's saying right here, it just doesn't go, woo, woo, woo. Hey, guess what? Yes, exactly. Hey, guess what? So when you would upload this, right? She's like, we just don't get a name back. It just doesn't go, oh my God. You just don't get like Tom Smith when you upload your profile. This doesn't say like, what? You're uploading it to see who your peeps are, who's your family members. Like, we're trying to see where I came from. Okay. I got to find my mom or my dad, or I was adopted or some shit like that. Right. So now, difficulties with tracing a family tree may arise when there are events that sever a relationship, such as an out of wedlock birth, name change, or an adoption. Okay. Because the family tree is then built down when you put this in. The construction of these family trees are highly subjective and is based on the use of public records such as marriage and birth certificates. It's also based on how good of a digger you are. Okay. If you're lazy and you're not a digger with like going on someone's social media and like digging it, like how we fucking do what we do. Okay. You guys probably love IGG. You want to dig on people and you want to go see who people are like related to. And then you're going to like have to search all these social media databases. All right. To say, oh, this person's friends with this person. Oh, I found out because of an obituary that person's actually the dad. And that's actually like then their uncle, because Tara and Susie are cousins, you know, like she's like, oh my God, my cousin's at my wedding. And then there's the dads in that picture. Like, so we're just like building out this ridiculous stalking of people that we want to search in cases, right? Like that's what we do. So congratulations, but that's pretty much IGG, is how good you are of a digger to be able to put this shit together. It's wild, but that's what you have to do. All right. So, and then you want to go get, so when you think like, oh my God, like, you know, these are the people. And then you're like, okay, who would have been in the area on the night of the murder? Who lives around that area? Well, anybody could have been there, but okay, we'll start with anybody that lived around there. Okay. And then what you have to do is then you go and then you have to somehow get this person's DNA by, you know, going to wherever they're at, taking something that they like discard, right? And then you want to make sure that you don't contaminate it, whatever. And then you're okay. Hey, come here, test my thing against, you know. So, in some instances, contacting individuals for further family information, such as noted above, this process leads to a pool of individuals, like I just said. Okay, a pool of individuals, rather than one specific individual. I am also aware via news reports in the Golden State Killer case that multiple individuals are often identified and must be eliminated. Okay, this is the key part of this, is that the FBI would have had to then eliminate the people that were in the pool with Bryan Kohberger. So where is that information of you? Hey, these are the names that we got. We eliminated this person because they were in Germany at the time. We eliminated this person because they're dead. We eliminated this person because they had an alibi that night. There's like photos and videos of them at a wedding, okay, in frickin', I don't know, San Francisco. But like, where is this eliminating? Where's that information at? As described in the Washington Post, the technique leads to a pool of relatives, not to a single individual. But would it lead to a single individual if you upload a profile that's already in there? And then I think the answer to that is, well, it may not have an exact hit, but it would be really, really close. And it's going to have to do with the sequencing on who did it and the snips that they took. So, remember, I went to California to learn all this crap. And that's clearly when Mallory was going and getting his training on. All right, so Bicka Barlow is just like, what is going on here? In addition, there has been a history of misuse of these IGG databases by law enforcement. Ooh, abuses by law enforcement of the JED match, okay, resulted in users opting out of the use of their DNA data by law enforcement. The abuses and protests by users led JED match to change their database so that users had to opt in for law enforcement use. Another database that allows law enforcement searches, family-free DNA, tree DNA, automatically opts users into law enforcement searches. An example of other abuses of this technology, a Florida police officer obtained a warrant for the entire GEDmatch database despite choice to opt out of law enforcement searches. Recently, the state of Maryland passed a statute regulating the use of IgG searches, requiring court approval at many stages of the process. In some cases, here we are, both law enforcement and the genealogists that they have employed. So what they're basically saying is the FBI did this, right? Who now we're coming to realize that the FBI was in cahoots with Moscow Police Department when getting these other search warrants, such as Google. And here, we're going to give you the returns of our federal grand jury information, which is fucking illegal. So here you go. You can have that. All right. And go ahead and just write these down. Like here, you're looking into this email address. Well, where did you get this email address from? Work backwards. You guys can't say that we gave it to you. Oh, and then they fucked up and didn't delete the whole copy, cut, and paste, and they left the words United States, government, and stupid shit. Like, you guys got caught. That's how, when you gonna fuck with people, you better be smart. You better not be sloppy and quick. So then it comes down to if the FBI cheated. The FBI cheated in every facet of this case, okay? Because it was the FBI that did the CAS report, right? That's missing, 80% of the data, but only use certain points of the data to obtain an illegal search warrant, right? Because if you put all the data in it, right, then it would have taken you elsewhere, right? Then your conclusions would be, you could not come to those conclusions if you used all the data, right? From the drive test, right? FBI. So someone's going to take the hit for this. Did the FBI do it? Was Moscow Police? Was it both of them? But why is the FBI getting in cahoots with Moscow Police Department to do all this fuckerage? Why wouldn't this become a federal investigation? All right. And why wouldn't the feds just have taken over this case? Or better yet, why didn't Moscow Police Department turn this whole case over to the Idaho State Police? Why did Moscow Police Department keep this case, even though they have nobody that has the education and the level, I would say, in the materials needed to do this case? Why? I don't know the answer to that. But in some cases, both law enforcement and the genealogists that have employed have engaged in deceptive practices, tricking family members, surreptitiously gathering genetic material from non-suspect family members, or simply uploading an evidentiary profile to a database that does not allow law enforcement searches. It is imperative to the defendant in this case to know how Mr. Kohberger was identified and who else in his family tree might have been identified as a subject of investigation. Now we've all been talking about third party. You're basically handicapping the defense here. Okay. That because the family trees generated by these genealogy searches, they often identify distant relatives through great or great grandparents. A person may be completely unaware of the relatives in the genetic genealogy searches and unable to conduct an independent investigation of possible third-party suspects. It is not possible for any defendant to investigate family relatives who are unknown to him and may, in fact, have been in the area of the crime. This material clearly is Brady material in that it would provide investigative leads that are otherwise unavailable to Mr. Kohberger. I will close with this. And in this case, in which the profile at issue is ambiguous and partial, other suspects are important areas of this investigation. Excuse me? So this profile, the issues with it, ambiguous and partial. So, Lana, do you think that IGG got to Bryan Kohberger? All I know is that you would just have to have somebody build a tree. Take the profile, build a tree. Give it to a good genealogist and let them build the tree themselves and see what comes back. See what comes back by somebody that's a good genealogist, right? And if they say that the only way that they could have came to this conclusion is by using GEDmatch and bypassing with the loop to be able to have all the, here's all the people that I had to use, and these people are all opted out. So you would just hand this data over to somebody that's a good genealogist, and they would create their own. And you're going to ask them to create it with only using non-law enforcement kits, and then say, go ahead and use the whole database. And let's take a look. And if they say, these would have been all your suspects or whatever. But if I could only use this, what was opted out, or if I wasn't allowed to use the accounts that were opted out, they're in this. And then how long did it take you? How long did it take you? Because you have to go look at how quickly the FBI got the name Bryan Kohberger to be able to turn it over to Moscow. Now, do you guys remember when Payne testified and he said that he didn't know when WSU found Bryan Kohberger's vehicle and that they turned it in as like a tip because they found that white Elantra on November 29th. He said, yeah, but we didn't get that yet. Somehow that just fell through the cracks. So WSU, who's just working hand in hand, it's not like me calling in a tip, but WSU, who's working hand in hand because you put it out to law enforcement before you put it out to the public, like, here, be on the lookout, right? How the fuck does that not get to Payne? Or is that a lie? It all happened way too fast. Yes, exactly. This all happened way too fast. Way too fast. Sitting in the courtroom listening to the Indiana head lab expert, okay, of the Indiana State Police lab, listening to her talk, like, it was clear as day to me, like, holy shit, how in the fucking world does somebody say to themselves that's like running an investigation, wants to have the integrity there, all this shit, says, we're going to go do IGG off the rip. And here, go ahead and just start filing some search warrants. Like, you know, they weren't investigating anybody. Remember when I said I was like, I forget the date. I have to go back and check, but they had only interviewed 38 people. And I'm like, 38 people? I was like, what the? And then all of a sudden it went from 38 to 250 people. And I'm like, 250 people from 38. I'm like, but they weren't asking any questions to the parents, allegedly. I'm like, I was like, something's up, man. This is just wild. This is absolutely wild how you got to this man. An ambiguous and partial sample would need IgG done first to produce the STR for CODIS. I want to know when it was uploaded to CODIS, you know, and that's why what I'm doing, when I'm in the works right now of, is creating this master Excel spreadsheet where it has everything in order based on the dates of when it was done. And it's stuff like this that gives me my little nuggets that I need. Okay. You know, then I was reading, so going back to Google here, you guys, they could not get any search warrants to do with Bryan Kohberger until like basically after his arrest. You guys understand that, right? Like all these search warrants to do with Bryan Kohberger except for AT&T are after his arrest. That's crazy. But why couldn't they? They needed his DNA. When they arrested him is when they obtained his DNA. That's when they swabbed him to then obtain his DNA. So his arrest and that warrant to arrest him produced his DNA. So if the warrant to arrest him is bogus, what goes out the window? His DNA. And then we sit here and scratch our heads about like, is there camera footage? So for the Dr. Moore case, when they were surveying Dr. Moore in Idaho, they were using camera, like they had a camera because they were surveying his truck. They were surveying him getting into his truck, driving his truck, like months after the murder of Brian Drake. There's video, there's a couple, when I say is so minimal, but there's a couple different things in terms of, for, I don't know, a couple minutes where they're surveying. But it was produced in Discovery. So you would think that if you're observing Bryan Kohberger here December 16th, were you video recording that? Is there video surveillance of that? Shouldn't there be? You would think, right? They had no probable cause for the warrants. Absolutely none. And that's what it's coming from. It's coming from basically saying, all of your warrants are shit because they all stem from lies or investigative genetic genealogy, which you can't do, right? Third, the search warrant fails to command law enforcement to search the Google accounts. When I actually went back and read this is actually correct. This is how bad this shit was. Okay. The warrants in this matter fail to actually provide a command to actually search the Google account. It says to just go and get and then turn it over to the courts. So, number one, there are grounds for issuing a search warrant. Number two, there are grounds to believe the property referred to and sought in or upon said premises consists of information related to investigation of crimes on the Google account of. Number 3, the command is made to search the premises for the property and seize it. The premises is Google LLC at 1600 Amphitheater Parkway. Number 4, there is no incorporating language for the search warrant affidavit. All of this is true. Like, this is what we talk about, like, sloppy. The Idaho Supreme Court found in, and then citing the case that there's a problem with this. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution requires that warrants must particularly describe the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I asked Bella the other day, I said, Bella, let me ask you a question. Let's say that I go and rob a store. Okay. I go and rob a store and I leave the store and people call in and say, we saw some girl, you know, blah, blah, blah. She went running, da, da, da. So they come chasing me and get me and detain me. Okay. Do they have probable cause to get my cell phone if I have my cell phone on me? What if I throw my cell phone in a garbage can? So therefore, when they have me, I don't have a cell phone on me. So I was giving her like 2 different, like, you know, and she's like, well, if I thought that you planned it out, there may be information on your cell phone that you had like pictures of the place, like casing it and stuff like that. And I was like, how specific would you have to be in that search warrant of my cell phone? She said, oh, fuck yeah, very specific. Like, I'm not able to just get your Google for fucking, you know, from 2016 to 2024. Okay. I said, what if I don't have my cell phone on me? What about that? I just go and I rob fucking CVS and I take lighters. Do you have a right to come fucking go get a search warrant for my cell phone? How the fuck do you have a search? How are you going to? Yeah. What is in my cell phone that could possibly help you in me stealing? And then she's like, okay, it can't be that. It's got to be something over. Okay. What if I go steal a car? Grand theft. What does my phone have anything to do with anything? So we were just like, you know, spitballing, like, if when something is on your person, okay, you just don't have free reign at it. Like, just because I had my phone on me, like, and it's gonna matter when I start talking about something else here in a second. So I wanted you guys to think about that. So the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. However, decisions must reflect the recognition that the Fourth Amendment commands, like all constitutional requirements, are practical and not abstract. The circuit courts are nearly uniform in allowing an affidavit in support, or to support the particular requirement when the warrant suitably references the affidavit and the affidavit accompanies the warrant. So you have to have the affidavit with the warrant. And they're talking about a post-conviction case, which I like. In this case, however, there is no reference to the affidavit, only to proof. And I'm going to show you guys what that means, because then I went and got right here. Lawrence Mowry, haven't given me proof. Proof of what? Upon oath. So why did Ann Taylor? I need the so given me proof upon oath. Why do you think Ann Taylor now needed the recordings of the search warrants? Right here. This is why. Lawrence Mowry having given me proof upon oath this day showing probable cause establishing grounds for issuing a search warrant, and there is probable cause to believe that the property referred to and sought in or upon said premises consists of information related to the investigations into the crimes of homicide on the Google account of Bryan C. Kohberger for all Gmail accounts linked by recovery email, cookie, Android ID, creation IP, or phone number associated with any of the following identifiers. Okay. Now, this is from the third one. This is from the third warrant for Google. Now, the first warrant for Google first one. Lawrence Mowry having given me proof upon oath this day showing probable cause establishing grounds for issuing a search warrant, and there is probable cause to believe that the property referred to and sought in or upon said premises consists of information related to the investigations into the crimes of homicide on the Google account of Bryan C. Kohberger with any of the following identifiers, email address of, and so I filled those in. So email address of this, and or Google accounts associated with the following phone numbers, this and this. Okay. Or any Google accounts associated with the following international mobile equipment identifier. That's the IMEI number. Okay. And then this is now what it says. Ready? And it's asking for all this shit, right? Now watch this. You are therefore commanded to search the above described premises. That means the premises for the property described above, to seize it if found and bring it promptly before the court above named. You guys, then this is where they're like, in this case, however, there is no reference to the affidavit, only to proof that the court found the warrant explicitly referenced the affidavit. They're referring to a case here. In the SDI future, the court relied on a reference to upon the sworn complaint made before me, emphasis in original. Okay. The word proof does not specify that the court relied on the affidavit for its probable cause determination. Additionally, there is no evidence that the warrants and the affidavit were attached to each other. Thus, the warrants did not permit the searches. The search warrant fails to provide specific, you have to be particular of what law enforcement could search on the Google account. All right. So you, the command is made to search the premises for the property and seize it. The premises is Google LLC at 1600. Okay. There it says you are therefore. Look at that, guys. Look at that. Okay. Now, the Fourth Amendment, as well as the Idaho Constitution, do not permit email and its attachments to be searched without a valid warrant. There is a subjective expectation of privacy in email and attachments that society is prepared to recognize as reasonable. Now, this is something I want to make perfectly clear. Well, if there's nothing incriminating in it, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? Well, hold on. First of all, I care. Okay. And all of you guys should care. The prosecution, the state, they can spin anything and make it incriminating against you. If you Googled, like Richard Allen did, something about a 1965 horror film, that was brought up in his case, that he was Googling and whatever he was watching with his Google searches. Like, how dare him watch a horror movie? I mean, you know how many, I don't even want to know what my Google search looks like. Okay. The United States Supreme Court, when confronting new concerns, about the digital technology, has been careful not to critically extend existing precedents. So, a warrant is not a magical wand. Okay. A warrant is not a magical wand that grants access to anything a Google account contains. Now, if you remember, Cy rated an episode not too long ago, and he asked, you have a problem with someone just coming in and entering your home and just being able to search wherever, right? Okay. Do you think that we have more things in our home or in our cell phones? Where's all your private shit at? Your phone is like your damn bank old school drop, like your lockbox. Okay. When you go into a home, you have to be specific of where you're searching, right? Your cell phones have all, like, I have all your password. I mean, everything is in your phone. Because back in the day, though, your home had all that shit because it was a bunch of papers. Okay. You had, we live in the world of digital technology. You're using everything digitally. Okay. No, you don't just get to say that you get, because I have Google, you get my fucking Google account and you get everything in Google, or I have Amazon, or I have this. Motherfucker, you do not get everything of mine. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen and what needs to start happening. Fuck the digital world then. Because we're advancing with technology, we're going to keep things in place that have to do with the, 1900s. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. And it's not because I'm like wanting people to get off on murders. It's because it's absolutely crazy. We have rights. Okay. And no, I don't think that anything is going to be incriminating on this person in 2016 for a quad homicide in 2022. But this end all be all scope of you can just have whatever and then try to then use it against me in court and spin it and tell the jury something? Absolutely not. That's not okay. See, my camera talks to me. It's 2024. There's a lot of things that are going to have to start changing. because of the digital world. But it's no different than our houses. You don't get to go into certain areas. Just like you have to have a valid warrant. You have to be saying what you are searching for and why. What do you think you're going to find there? What do you think you're going to find? What are you looking for? Well, I want to search your Amazon because I think that you bought the knife on Amazon. You think that I bought the knife on Amazon. How do you know that the knife was even bought at Amazon? Well, Amazon sells it. And so do a lot of places. What's going to be your scope on when you think I bought this knife? But that sheath looks like it's brand new. There's no marks on it. Shit, there's nobody else's DNA on it, right? That thing looks like it's brand new. So why are you going and looking for something that I bought in 2018 or 16 or 20? Absolutely ridiculous. Just because there was that sheath there, how do I know? How do you know that whatever knife was in there is the murder weapon? Did you talk to the ME? All the wounds are consistent with it being one knife, and that's the only knife that was used, huh? Because I guarantee you that ain't coming back with the ME. The ME is going to say that she can't determine that shit, and it could be possibly this, just like I heard in the Richard Allen case. Tan, thank you. So, in striking a balance between law enforcement interests and the rights of individuals to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures, the process of segregating electronic data that is sizable from that which is not must not come because a vehicle for the government to gain access to data, which is if it has not probable cause to collect. So there must be some threshold showing before the government may seize the haystack to look for the needle. The 3 Google warrants lack appropriate particularization for 3 separate email accounts, 2 phone numbers, and 1 IMEI number. They list the following as possibly existing on the accounts. Google account subscription, and this is exactly, so she takes this and lists this right to this, like how they did it. See, Google account subscription information is defined. Okay, that's what this is. So she puts that all there. The data complication is too broad and that it makes no attempt at narrowing and results instead in a blanket request for everything available in a Google account. And that's fucking bullshit. I mean, who signed these? This is crazy. Like, when you would know that you'd have all eyes on you and this stuff will be being brought to you. And here's Megan Marshall just signing away everything. And it's like, the fuck are you doing? Why is this magistrate even doing this? But now this is so think about a general warrant. So you just get a blanket request for everything available in a Google account, which is akin to the search of all electronic records, an entire computer, or all data on a cell phone. It is a request for the full haystack. That's like coming into your house and I get to go and search wherever the fuck I want. Here's a search warrant for your house. Move over. Here's a search warrant for the school. Here's a search warrant for Think about somebody coming into a bank and being able to seize bank records, right? Nope. We're going to have we get the whole bank here. And so I'm going to look through all this shit. No, you would need to specify what bank account. Let's see. What else do I want to point out that so still this case presents a warrant that is overbroad and under the long-standing principles of Article 1, Section 17 and the Fourth Amendment. And it's a big no-no. Riley's good. I want to show you. Wheeler's a good case. So the warrant issued for Mr. Kohberger's Google accounts were unconstitutionally overbroad. Law enforcement had the ability to be more specific, both as to the contents and the category of the digital files it sought. And it chose not to be specific because what it wanted and what it got was a general warrant. It's exactly what happened. Therefore, everything found in the search of the Google accounts must be suppressed. You know, because you guys fuck around, find out, do like the Franks. And see, the only reason I want that Franks to be unsealed is because I really, really, really want Rosie and Baldwin to see how Ann and team filed this Franks, because this stuff, as you can see, is really, really heavy with case law, which is so important because you're trying to show a judge, hey, this is precedent and here it is. And this is how this person did things. This is how this judge handled it. Here's the case. Now I want you to follow suit. Okay. And whereas with Baldwin and Rosie, when they wrote out the 319 pages, you know, there's nowhere near that type of language like this. And that's what you kind of need, you know? But it pointed out, like, there's no doubt in my mind that those idiots in Indiana lied their asses off, clearly. Okay. But what Ann Taylor and company is showing us here with all of this is that there is proof of the cheating and the illegal operations within these search warrants and the language that was used, the copy, cut, and paste, working with the FBI and getting information from the FBI that you cannot get and use in a search warrant for the state here. And that comes up in Amazon. And so that's going to be the next thing I'm going to show is Amazon. Free Ricky, baby. DB, I got a proposition for you. Tan, coffee and tea. What's up? Coffee Master, how are you? Laura, member for 1 month. So why didn't they use BK's own DNA? They took DNA twice. What did they do with it? They didn't get DNA until after his arrest. The arrest warrant is what produced the DNA. And that was an invalid warrant. And so bye-bye DNA. Did I get everybody there? Is there a hearing today? I wish there was a hearing today. Liz, woo! 5 memberships turning people green. Karen, Love your little cat green eyes. Look out. Sorry, I was making sure I hit everybody over there. Good, DV. I love a good proposition. Oh, it's a really good one. I'd love a hearing today. I would love an emergency motion. We have an emergency motion being filed by Ann Taylor, and it's just a WTF. Where the fuck is mainstream media talking about this? Lana, stop cussing. You guys, this should bother people. This would bother me if I was a parent of one of these kids. Are you kidding me? If Bryan Kohberger is a murderer, he's going to walk possibly because y'all did this? Why? Why did you do this? Well, because we wouldn't have got to him if we didn't. And that's what we're talking about. And it's like, well, maybe y'all should just done, try to do it right, at least like for a minute, maybe one day Bryan Kohberger would have gotten popped and put into the CODIS somehow, and then boom, you have your, but again, though, but that's even saying that he's the guy. And it's like, if you have to do all of this and you're cheating, and I'm just using cheating for back of letter, what do you want me to say they're doing? There was a 1 hour hearing. Oh, was it today? Now, for my second bomb drop, I'm going to talk about here. I want to talk about how Bryan Kohberger's parents were just completely, fucked with. The Pennsylvania search warrant for 119 Lambson Drive. Okay. We are clear, guys, that if I was to just say these things that were written through 1 through 9 in a warrant, I'd be considered a conspiracy theorist, okay? But here, the government does it, and it's just normal. Okay. Federal and Pennsylvania law enforcement violated Mr. Kohberger's Idaho and Pennsylvania constitutional rights by not knocking and announcing their presence and presenting Mr. Kohberger with the opportunity to surrender. They have 7 issues with the warrant for Bryan Kohberger's parents' house. Okay? And I said to myself, wow. That's great. I'm gonna have to keep that on the hush hush now when I ring my bell. Who are you seeing on the internet? Are you sending money to somebody? Are you cheating on me on the internet? That's funny. Sorry, I had to break away. That's funny there. No grounds for no knock warrant. Yeah, this is a big one, you guys. This to me is, why are you going and making more victims? Okay, Bryan's family has nothing to do with this. Absolutely nothing to do with this. And this is ridiculous. So the issues is that, number 1, this court should apply Idaho's exclusionary rule and law to this search. The second issue, Mr. Kohberger has standing to challenge the search of his parents' home. 3, Pennsylvania law enforcement violated Mr. Kohberger's Fourth Amendment rights by entering and searching his parents' home without a valid local warrant. Without a valid local warrant. I mean, how dumb can you be? Why wouldn't you do that? Well, what do you mean? They had, but guess what? We're going to see how it was invalid here in a second. The Idaho arrest could not have given police in Pennsylvania the authority to enter the home. The Idaho arrest warrant could not have given police in Pennsylvania the authority to enter the home. Remember, this is a complicated case, complex. They knew and had eyes on Bryan Kohberger before he ever left to go to Pennsylvania. For how long, you guys think? I did a live and I stated when I thought this happened because I said, listen, Bill Thompson slipped up. I would be serving Bill Thompson. Bill Thompson become a witness for the defense. I think Bill Thompson should become a witness. Why, Lana? Because Bill Thompson said that he would send his kids to school, but I do understand that I know a lot more, but that's why it's safe to send your kids to school. And this was in November of 2022. Well, what did Bill Thompson know in November of 2022 that he knew that it was safe to send kids to school at Moscow? Like, what's going on here? What do you know? What do you know in November? And that it's safe to send. There's been no arrest. There's been no suspects named. Okay. There's no persons of interest, right? He came out, he did 2 back-to-back. What prosecutor is going around during an active investigation, literally just weeks after the murders, and going on a world tour? Who does that man think he is? Bill Thompson, you think that I think that you don't know, that you didn't know anything about what was going on and how illegal this shit was? You are the top, okay? You're the one that's choosing to prosecute. You make those decisions. This is on you. This is your team is underneath you. That would be the police would be underneath you. Because if I saw this bullshit, I'd be like, what have you guys done? None of this is legal. You want me to go to court with this shit? I'd be pissed. I'd be firing people. I'm not going to babysit you. You do your, hey, I need you to do this. Awesome, great. When you're done, you're done. I'm not going to babysit you. When you turn it in and I see that it's shit, okay, bye. I don't need you. You're shit. Like, what did you do? What's going on here? You're going to tell me that Bill Thompson didn't know anything about this? Bill Thompson knew because he admitted in court he sent the FBI to Vargas's house. Bill Thompson, who do you think Bill Thompson got in contact with so that happened like this? Who do you think had a direct connect to get to Bill Thompson? I know what that was all about. How in the world is somebody involved in the IGG world having direct contact and a direct link to be able to get to Bill Thompson like that? The wild shit. All cheaters. This is criminal. So you cannot do this no knock bullshit. Okay. Did they want another situation of what happened with Brent Kopaka over there? I mean, what if that happened and I don't know, somebody's laying in bed with a gun next to them and they grab a gun because somebody's busting in their house and it would have been a shootout. I mean, think about that. So the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant recklessly or intentionally omitted material information. The affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant included information that must be ixnayed. All information in the affidavit was gathered because of law enforcement's unconstitutional use of investigative genetic genealogy, and thus nothing in the warrant should remain. Information about the client's locations sorry, not location, but locations, taken from his phone must also be ixnayed due to being gathered from an invalid warrant. As you can see, I already had this underlined or circled. Okay. Information about the client's locations. And then lastly here, number 7, is statements after arrest are either fruit of the poisonous tree from the illegal arrest or should be suppressed as a Miranda violation. And I said, boom. I said, you know what Idaho does? All they do is violate people's Miranda. Okay? They did it to Dr. Moore. These motherfuckers don't give a fuck. Okay? They don't give a fuck. These are the facts. Due to the haphazard way in which law enforcement has kept and disclosed records in this matter, the following are the facts relating to obtaining the search warrant, for the address, his address. Number 1 here, December 28, Trooper Leary of Pennsylvania State Police became aware the objective of arresting Mr. Kohberger via Moscow Police Captain Payne. We're going to arrest him on the 28th. 29th. At 4:44 p.m., which is 1:44 at the Eastern Standard, because remember, Bryan's in Pennsylvania, so it would be 1:44 on the West Coast out there, but in Pennsylvania, it was 4:44. A magistrate in Pennsylvania issued a search warrant for 119. Remember, I laid this all out back in the day. It was for the home of Mr. Kohberger's parents. On December 29th at 2:22 p.m., which would have been 5:22, the magistrate in this matter signed an arrest warrant for Mr. Kohberger in Latah County, pointing out we have a problem here. Okay, we're pointing out we have a nice little problem here. The affidavit for the warrant was signed by Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker, the one that they used. Remember, I pointed that out. I was like, wow. I said, so for the house warrant, they used Blaker's. But then I said, but for the arrest of him, they used Payne. Okay, remember that? I was showing you guys that. I was like, and then remember for WSU, for his apartment, they used Blaker's again. I'm like, why? What the hell's going on here? What's the problem? Now, the basic facts Blaker used to support the search were, next to the body of Madison Mogan was a tan leather knife sheath. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA on the button snap of the knife sheath. If this was in Indiana, there is no way in hell that woman is getting that off of skin cells based off of like her testimony. Footage from the King Road neighborhood, and they put that in quotes, like what footage from the King Road neighborhood, showed what the police suspected was the vehicle of the killer. This white sedan lacked a front license plate. A quote-unquote vehicle specialist decided, based on the footage, that the vehicle was a 2011-2016 Hyundai Elantra. A vehicle matching that description was spotted via surveillance in Pullman. You guys, this is where I say, now, this would sound like somebody that's writing a conspiracy, like writing up a conspiracy. Because this. It later was, right here. A vehicle matching the description was spotted via surveillance in Pullman. It was later discovered that Mr. Kohberger drives a 2015 Hyundai Elantra and that he lived not far from the last place a white sedan was seen driving in Pullman over an hour later. You guys know how many white sedans were out that night? All over, like Pullman, Moscow, like wherever. The same specialist indicated the car was seen in Pullman was a 2014 to 2016. Now, witness Dylan Mortensen, this is number 3. Witness Dylan Mortensen had indicated the height of the person she saw at the time of the attack was between 5'10" and 6 foot, and that they had bushy eyebrows. Police determined Mr. Kohberger fit that description. Police determined that. They didn't even give Dylan a 6-pack. No lineup. No lineup. Or if there was one, nothing was, there's no fruits coming from it. No lineup was given to Dylan. The police were the ones that determined that when they saw Bryan Kohberger's ID that, oh, look at those bushy brows. Records, okay, from an August 21st, 2022 traffic stop showed Mr. Kohberger was the driver of a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates, lacking a front plate. It also showed he had the phone number. He noted investigators, in quotes, learned this was an AT&T number. You guys, this is now in question. How did you figure it out that that was an AT&T number? What did you do to figure that out? How did you figure that out? Mr. Kohberger had changed his vehicle registration to Washington on November 18, 2022. Cell tower records did not show Mr. Kohberger was in Moscow at the time of the murders. In law enforcement's experience, though, however, people committing crimes typically turn off their phones. You guys, Moscow police, when they wrote up that affidavit, them saying that Bryan Kohberger's phone was shut off, you guys do realize that that was just what they said. That's their experience. Hey, you know what? Well, because when we went ahead and took that phone number and we put it up against the cell towers, you guys, we realized, that phone never came. It wasn't there during the murders. It wasn't there before it, and it wasn't there after it for an hour before and after when they think the murders happened. But we're going to still go forward because guess why? People that commit crimes, guys, they will turn off their phones. So there is no proof that Bryan Kohberger, in fact, turned off his phone. It is just the police saying, our experience, people will turn off their phones when they want to commit a crime. So everybody out there that's saying, Bryan Kohberger turned off his phone. No. The police said that in their experience, when people commit crimes, people turn off their phones. Historical cell site location information was obtained and given to a cellular analysis survey team, CAST, with the FBI. This is what Cyril upended in court. The team determined that on November 13th, 2022, now they're saying, that team, because that's how vague it is. Like nobody is, remember they had that hearing and everyone's passing the buck. Like who did this? What? I don't know. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That team determined that on November 13th, 2022, at approximately 2:42 a.m., that team determined, this is not proof. This is what they just said. That team determined that at approximately 2:42 a.m., Mr. Kohberger's phone was utilizing cellular resources. This is how they said, and it's in quotes for a reason. Utilizing cellular resources. That's their verbiage. That provide coverage to his apartment in Pullman. That doesn't mean that he's at his apartment. Okay? That means he's in a goddamn radius. He's in a circle of any area that when you are using your phone and how it's connecting and what tower it's on, okay? They then support the idea that he left his apartment and went south. They then supported the phone being off. Then they support at 4:48 a.m. that the phone is a. So when they say this is all of what this team is saying, there's no evidence of this. They then support the idea that he left his apartment and went south. They then supported the phone being off. They then support it at 4:48 a.m. that the phone is south of Moscow near Blaine. The phone utilizes resources that make their way back to Pullman, coinciding with a white Elantra seen on some surveillance there. A similar data showing occurs at approximately 9 a.m. with a trip to Moscow and returning at 9:32 a.m. That same team determined Mr. Kohberger had been to Moscow on at least 12 occasions prior to that event, and that he came into the area the morning following the murders. However, law enforcement, without explanation, indicated it did not believe that the final trip ever occurred. Pennsylvania agents seized garbage at Mr. Kohberger's parents' residence and found DNA it determined was likely the father of the suspect DNA found on the sheath. At 2:43 p.m. on December 29th, a criminal complaint and probable cause order were filed in this manner. At 10 p.m. Eastern, Pennsylvania SWAT began preparations to arrest Mr. Kohberger. Despite weeks of constant FBI surveillance, Pennsylvania law enforcement did their own surveillance starting at 11:15 p.m. And despite the fact that weeks of constant FBI surveillance showed Mr. Kohberger was unarmed and tended to go for runs around his parents' neighborhood, police decided that in the dead of the night, with his parents' home, that was the best way to make their arrest. They knew that he went on runs, that he was unarmed. But hey, guys, let's bust some shit down. Let's fucking wreak some havoc on these people. They could have just taken him on a run. On December 30th, 2022, at 1:14 a.m., Pennsylvania SWAT raided Mr. Kohberger's parents' home. During the raid, law enforcement broke the front door of the home, shattered the sliding glass door of the basement, held the entire family at gunpoint. Are you kidding me? Giving these people what? PTSD for the rest of their lives? And seized Mr. Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger made statements to his arresting officers. None of that was on camera. He was transported to a police station in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and made statements during transport. At the station, Mr. Kohberger was processed, during which police collected information about his person. Finally, during interrogation, before requesting an attorney, Mr. Kohberger made statements to interrogators from the Idaho State Police. I want to know who that is. And the Moscow Police Department. At 4 a.m., Pennsylvania State Police filed a criminal complaint against Mr. Kohberger. Now, the argument. The court should apply Idaho's exclusionary rule and law to this search. The first question this court must determine is whether there is a conflict of laws in this matter, i.e., whether Idaho law or Pennsylvania law controls the validity of the search warrant for Mr. Kohberger's parents' home and the necessary relief. Unlike the issue of arrest warrants, cases involving multiple state investigations have produced far less case law. In fact, the defense could not find a precise case on point for the state of Idaho. The issue, however, has received some attention in academia, so that's what's being talked about. Fortunately, for this court, Idaho and Pennsylvania do not differ in their approaches to the enforcement of their Fourth Amendment. Thus, the court can likely afford to leave as an open question which forum's exclusionary rule applies. However, it is also clear from the grounding of the exclusionary rule in Article 1, Section 17, that evidence obtained in violation of the Constitution must be excluded. Thus, Mr. Kohberger argues that the Idaho Constitution's exclusionary rule must apply, as its basis lies not only in deterring police misconduct, but because exclusion is constitutionally mandated and judicial integrity demands it. However, it remains to be determined whether the actions of the FBI and Pennsylvania state troopers should be judged by the protections of Article 1, Section 17, or its analogies, or analogs. It is not all clear that whether a search should be judged by Idaho's standards of reasonableness or that of Pennsylvania, or in the case of the FBI agents by the Fourth Amendment. As noted, so then they talk about Professor Kerr some more. And he says that Professor Kerr would have Idaho's reasonableness apply in that the FBI and the Pennsylvania state troopers were acting under its authorization. This approach would also mesh well with the older cases such as, and it's just listing these cases. Basically, Idaho asked for the help of the FBI and Idaho asked for the help of Pennsylvania. And because Idaho asked for that help in their case, that it should just fall under Idaho's laws. So in this matter, Idaho authorities requested assistance from the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was not under investigation for violating Pennsylvania or federal law. Do you guys see that? That's really, really important. Thus, the court should be required to apply Idaho's search and seizure laws to their actions in Pennsylvania. Now, this is where I already went to town because I was like, this is some shit. However, this approach has its detractors. So, in a different case, McGlynn argues that when the CITES officer is performing the search, they should only be held to uphold their own laws. While that position has merit, as it does not require a CITES officer to get a rundown of the differences between their law and the trial state's law, it remains that Idaho Constitution is not merely concerned with deterrence to officers who misbehave. Moreover, it is of concern that such a rule would permit forum shopping. Great way to word it. Ready? After all, if Idaho's law enforcement may take advantage of laxer restrictions in a different state, they may simply pause their investigation until their suspect is in the new jurisdiction. Or in this case of the FBI, state law enforcement could at any point, even with Idaho, call upon federal agents with far laxer rules of the Fourth Amendment. And do I say, is that being smart or is that scumbag or what? You guys can decide. But you can't pick and choose. Like, well, hey, we know that Bryan's going to be leaving for Christmas break. So when they want to, they had the opportunity to arrest him in all these other places, you guys. Or at least try to talk to him. Like, remember the whole thing is we want to know who's driving that white Honda Elantra because we want to talk to them. Remember it was said there could have been multiple people in that vehicle. We just want to talk with that person. But they tell all of us that they're looking for like a 2011, 2013 when it came public. Remember the date on when we were all told about that? You guys remember the date? What was the date? Now, finally, it must be said that there is very little daylight between the Idaho Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution. Both apply exclusion to a failure to knock and announce. So who gives a royal fuck? Because it doesn't matter if you're going to go with Pennsylvania law or Idaho law. You cannot do this no knock bullshit. Okay? You have to be, you have to get something very, very special to be able to do that. If anything, Pennsylvania appears to have stricter warrant requirements for being particular. So Mr. Kohberger has standing to challenge the search of his parents' home. Mr. Kohberger grew up in his parents' home, and at the time of the entry and search, he was staying there for winter break. As an overnight guest, he undoubtedly has standing to challenge the search in this case. Moreover, the court in Olson clearly had a situation just like this case in mind. And so here is showing like there's precedent here. Okay. And it was the house guest is there with the permission of his host, who was willing to share his house and his privacy with his guest. It is unlikely that the guest will be confined to a restricted area of the house. And when the host is away or asleep, the guest will have a measure of control over the premises. The host may admit or exclude from the house as he prefers, but it is unlikely that he will admit someone who wants to see or meet with the guest over the objection of the guest. On the other hand, few house guests will invite others to visit them while they are guests without consulting their hosts. But the latter, who have the authority to exclude despite the wishes of the guest, will often be accommodating. The point is that the hosts will more likely than not respect the privacy interest of their guests, who are entitled to a legitimate expectation of privacy despite the fact that they have no legal interest in the premises and do not have the legal authority to determine who may or may not enter the household. In bold, if the untrammeled power to admit and exclude were essential to Fourth Amendment protections, an adult daughter temporarily living in the home of her parents would have no legitimate expectation of privacy because her right to admit or exclude would be subject to her parents' veto. Thus, Mr. Kohberger has a son home for a weeks-long stay at his parents' home, has standing to challenge the entry and search in this case, regardless of his authority within the home. Pennsylvania law enforcement violated Mr. Kohberger's Fourth Amendment rights by entering and searching his parents' home without a valid local warrant. Pennsylvania courts require a warrant for a particular residence to go after a person police are aware has an arrest warrant. The need for a warrant for a fugitive from another state is coded as such. Without a governor's warrant, an officer can get a judicial warrant to permit entry into a home. See, without either type of those warrants, okay, an officer lacks this authority. Why wouldn't you just do it the right way? I don't understand. Well, yeah, you do, Lana. Is it because they couldn't get this? You know, like, I mean, this understanding also comports with, that's another case, state warrants have no territorial effect. The use of an out-of-state warrant, thus law enforcement in Pennsylvania could not rely on the existence of the Idaho arrest warrant to enter the home, and they did. It was attached. It was attached, these fucking idiots. That's what I said. I said this in a live. I said, I'm so confused how this police officer in PA, it just literally said that I read the arrest warrant that so-and-so, Blaker wrote up or whatever, and was briefed on the case. And yep, just going to attach that here. And that was just it. Federal and Pennsylvania law enforcement violated Mr. Kohberger's Pennsylvania and Idaho constitutional rights by not knocking and announcing their presence and presenting Mr. Kohberger with the opportunity to surrender. As noted above, Idaho's law should apply to the entry in this case. However, Pennsylvania, like Idaho, has rejected the good faith exception. So similarly, it insists upon suppression where the knock and announce rule has not been complied with absent an extenuating circumstance. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has only found 4 of these extenuating circumstances permitting police to ignore the knock and announce rule. And here are those. This is the only way that you can do this. Number 1, the occupants remain silent after repeated knocking and announcing. Well, that didn't happen. Number 2, the police are virtually certain that the occupants of the premises already know their purpose. Well, that's not even remotely true, right? Number 3, the police have reason to believe that an announcement prior to entry would imperil their safety. Really? I would think that doing what they did would jeopardize their safety, right? And then number 4, the police have reason to believe that evidence is about to be destroyed. And now does everybody understand maybe what they're going to try to say? Remember where this was? Oh, Bryan Kohberger, we just went in and he was just separating his trash with gloves on. Is that what they're going to try to say? Like somebody was destroying evidence? I mean, this is just ridiculous. Because that didn't happen either. Mr. Kohberger had been okay. So, in this case, there is and can be no showing of these like any of these provisions, anything, these extreme situations, these exceptions to the rule, those 4, nope, they're not. That's not happening in this case. Mr. Kohberger had been surveyed by the FBI for weeks. At no point during this surveillance was he seen to have any weapons. There was no reason to take him inside the house, as surveillance undoubtedly was aware of his daily runs. The evidence the police sought was simply not of the kind that, given him a chance to exit the residence, would have imperiled. It's still going to be there. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what's up, Goose? How you feeling over there? There is little difference between what, if anything, Adam Lally, the officers could claim required the destruction of the Kohberger's home and what the state relied upon in Ramos. Because they're showing courts or cases that didn't happen. Pennsylvania cases show that the failure to announce in this case was egregious. Was egregious. In Chambers, it's a case, detectives covered both doors of a residence, knocked, and then immediately shoved the defendant back into his house the moment he started to open the door while aiming their weapons at him. The Supreme Court found the quote-unquote forcible entry was completely unwarranted. Egregious is one of my favorites. Me too. Salacious is another favorite of mine. Okay, I mean, what? Now, in Commonwealth, so this is Pennsylvania, in Commonwealth versus Kitchener, the court found exigent circumstances where the defendant had a history of violence and fleeing police, and after they announced themselves, heard running and believed the suspect was either fleeing or going to harm or arm himself. By a history of violence, the defendant had arrest for attempted murder, aggravated assault, like all this shit, okay? Now, in comparison, Mr. Kohberger has no criminal history, no reputation for violence, or even being a gun aficionado. What? It makes no sense that the police were willing to announce them. It makes no sense that the police were willing to announce themselves in Kitchener and not to him, meaning Mr. Kohberger. Taking the allegations in this case as true, there is still no explanation as to why a small army was required to capture Mr. Kohberger. Given the force the police decided to use here, there was no reason whatsoever to break down the front door, shatter the basement sliding door, and point guns at the inhabitants. Can you imagine just sleeping like during Christmas break and you're 60-some years old, Mr. and Mrs. Kohberger, whoever the hell else was there, right? And this just fucking flying in at your house. Can you imagine that? Like, tell me that you could just go to sleep every night and that, like, how are you not suing the living fuck out of these people? They better sue the police. This is ridiculous. I would never be able to go to, like, anytime I heard like the littlest of noise, I would be like losing it. So the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant recklessly or intentionally omitted material information. You know, the Fourth Amendment states that no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by the oath of affirmation, and you have to be particularly describing the place to be searched. So here in this case with Mr. Kohberger's house or his parents' house, you know, they're totally telling, like, hey, for a search warrant to be valid, you guys, the judge issuing the warrant must rely on the affidavit or affidavit sworn to be before the judge or testimony under oath and recorded that establish the grounds for issuing the warrant. In this case, law enforcement either intentionally or recklessly, but likely intentionally, omitted exculpatory evidence as to almost every facet of its affidavit for this arrest. Dude, you don't write this type of shit, man. If you can't back it up, that's why that's why it's sealed. We get these little nuggets. Okay? But here, they're going as far as to say that it's not but likely intentionally, you know. So you could intentionally or recklessly, but likely intentionally added there. Omitted exculpatory evidence in almost every facet of its affidavit for this warrant. Thus, it will require suppression. The arguments proffered for a Franks hearing in support of this argument is filed because it's separate, you know. So right there, you need to insert and then look at that part of the Franks. I think it's going to be unsealed. in a little bit. I will be at that hearing, though, on January 23rd in person. So I ain't missing nothing. The affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant included information that must be ixnayed. And it's, if you go to A, remember, it's saying, hey, not to mention the fact that, hey, all of this stems from this. So, like, it's just reiterating, okay? And that's argued in a separate motion because that's the only other one that's sealed. So let's talk about information about the client's locations taken from his phone must also be ixnayed due to being gathered from an invalid warrant. So separately, the information gathered via the warrant for Mr. Kohberger's AT&T account and the pen, trap, and trace device warrant should be ixnayed for the reasons set out in those motions to suppress and all of the other motions to suppress that impact the warrant language. So they're tying this in because this has to do with the pen trap. Yeah, that's why they're mentioning it in this, because he was at his home, his parents' home. Statements after the arrest are either fruit of the poisonous tree from the illegal arrest or should be suppressed as a Miranda violation. So either way, we gotcha. Okay, why? How is this a Miranda violation? Well, let's talk about it right here. Any statements post-arrest of Mr. Kohberger are fruit of the poisonous tree from an unlawful arrest. In addition, statements made as soon as he was placed in zip ties. Being placed in zip ties, you're detained. You have to read somebody their Miranda. That is detainment. Oh, and he was held at gunpoint by many police officers without a Miranda warning. Should be suppressed. Holy fucking shit. And remember I said, guys, Pennsylvania State Police, they don't wear body cams. FBI don't wear. So did Moscow Police Department. Did they wear their body cams? They have body cams. Did Payne go in there with body? Did he wear a body cam? To protect the Fifth Amendment privilege against compulsory self-incrimination, police, quote unquote, must inform individuals of their right to remain silent and their right to counsel, either retained or appointed, before undertaking a custodial interrogation. The requirements for Miranda warnings is triggered by custodial interrogation. Now, a person need not be under arrest to be in custody, y'all. That's a fact for Miranda purposes. Mr. Kohberger was zip-tied after a no-knock warrant was served. Like, just fucking highlight that shit, Lana. Just do it. All right, fine. Your parents are probably screaming. Everybody's probably screaming. What the fuck is going on? Like, they wanna be able to suppress all of that shit. Anything that people are like, oh my God, what the fuck is, what did you do now, Brian? You know, that, what did you do now, Brian? Oh my God, what the fuck, Brian? Like, and all of that type of shit. Okay. So Mr. Kohberger was zip-tied after a no-knock warrant was served. He was zip-tied at his hands and surrounded by police at gunpoint. Law enforcement did not Mirandize him immediately. Instead, they waited until after he was transported in a police car, handcuffed with at least two officers in the car. One was seated next to him in the back seat. What? Defendant, and then see Franks. See, look at this. See the Franks. See Franks 133 Idaho at 69 through 70, 982. Boom. Defendant was in custody for purposes of Miranda when he was questioned while handcuffed and restricted to the area of that patrol car. a reasonable person in Mr. Kohberger's position would have understood himself to be in custody. Yeah, intimidation tactics is exactly right. Okay. 2 conversations took place before Mr. Kohberger was Mirandized at the police station. It is clear from the police station video that detectives asked him if he had ever been Mirandized before and said they needed to go through the formality of Mirandizing him. He said no. So Bryan is heard and seen saying no. They did not Mirandize me. So everything up until he's Mirandized, okay? Like, we have a problem here. You guys did not Mirandize Bryan Kohberger immediately. So no video or audio recording of the entry into the home and initial arrest has been produced. Boom. They went in there, y'all, without cameras on. Or if they have cameras, they haven't turned them over. And I told you guys this. I said, if you guys think that there's going to be cameras on those PSP officers, you've lost your mind. Because there was none in Sheldon Jeter Jr.'s. I don't even know if they have cameras. Maybe they do now. Video and audio begin with Mr. Kohberger in the police car. Oh, so because they have what? Dash cam? So then you want us to go off of what cops say in a police report of what happened and what was said in a house. In determining whether a person has been subjected to a custodial interrogation for purposes of Miranda, courts may also consider the conduct of the officers and the nature and manner of the questioning. The conduct of the law enforcement with Mr. Kohberger in the house is referred to as small talk. They wrote it in papers and said that we were engaged in small talk. Are you out of your mind? You think that's going to fly? You think that that's going to fly when you do a no-knock warrant with a SWAT team and put them in zip ties and you guys are having small talk? Small talk when he is being recorded during transport. So the reason we didn't read him as Miranda during the transport is because we were engaged in small talk. This cannot be verified because no audio or video is produced. The conduct of the officer in the police car during transport cannot be described as an interrogation. However, without a video or audio recording of in-custody discussions inside the house, so what happened inside the house, the true nature of the statements made in the car are without context. All statements made at the police station were post-Miranda. Information in the media right after arrest and attributed to law enforcement report that Mr. Kohberger, remember this? Who else did you arrest? Who else was arrested? Such a statement is not in a police report or in an audio/video recording that can be found in discovery. And this is why I said, cuff up your source, Etten, or retract the fuck out of that shit. If it is a statement that the state will seek to attribute to him at trial, it should be suppressed as a non-Mirandized statement. If the conversation with Mr. Kohberger inside the house was custodial in nature, that context may warrant suppression of the conversation in the police car during transport. But guess what? We don't know because it wasn't recorded. But guess what? Brian Etten, cough up your source, because I bet it's the same person that was leaking tons of shit to y'all motherfuckers when Brian was in Latah County. Mark my fucking words. Whoever that source is the same person that was leaking shit and lying with these leaks, may I add. Because just like it said right here, that shit is not in any reports. Don't you think that'd be a really important thing to say if Bryan Kohberger said, who else did you guys arrest? This is sick. Again, all statements made at the police station were post-Miranda. Information in the media right after the arrest and attributed to law enforcement reported that Mr. Kohberger said, who else was arrested? Who else did you arrest? Such a statement is not in a police report or in any audio/video recording that can be found in discovery. If it is a statement that the state will seek to attribute to him at trial, it should be suppressed as a non-Mirandized statement. If the conversation with Mr. Kohberger inside the house was custodial in nature, that context may warrant suppression of the conversations in the police car during transport. Boom. Now, Brian Etten, who told you that? Brian Etten, who said that to you? And this is where mainstream media, okay? These are these cheap shots. Like, why would you ever say that? And now it's in a freaking suppression hearing. It's going to be all over that Franks That's Sealed. And I'm sorry. I think that flat out people that lie, you shouldn't have protection. You wanted to lie about something. Who said it? Who's your source? It's just disgusting. This shit is disgusting. You want to talk about inserters? They should subpoena Etten. Yeah, bring him on down. I want to hear him claim privilege. That's a source I'm going to claim privilege on. Really? Okay. The last one I'm going to do today, there'll be a part 3, is I want to talk about the pen trap and trace. We don't know what was blacked out. That's what was blacked out, guys. That's what was blacked out, is that when Bryan Kohberger was arrested, he said, who else did you guys arrest? That's what got spread all through the media. So, they filed a motion for an order suppressing all data found by law enforcement from the search of his AT&T account and tracing his phone usage. So, Mr. Kohberger has privacy interests in his AT&T account information protected by, we know, the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued searches or search warrants recklessly or intentionally omitted material information. The search warrant fails to provide specific, so you have to be specific, particularization of what law enforcement could search and seize in Mr. Kohberger's AT&T account. 4 is the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant included information that must Be ixnated. I just say it like that because I always fuck up that word. So somebody wrote that in chat, just thought I would tell you. All information in the affidavit was gathered because of law enforcement's unconstitutional use of investigative genetic genealogy. They're putting always this first, and then they go into whatever the issues may be. But what I thought was really interesting when I read this was the facts associated with this are right here, and it's at the bottom. On December 23rd, 2023, Payne of the Moscow Police Department requested a warrant to search the contents of Mr. Kohberger's AT&T account for information regarding his phone's whereabouts between November 12th and November 14th, as well as messages and phone calls during that period. However, the affidavit and warrant went beyond that range. And so they're saying that with the first warrant, it went beyond that range because the first warrant is the November 12th through the 14th. The second AT&T warrant is the one that did like the 6 months basically from June until the day he was arrested or to the day that they put the warrant in. So, however, the affidavit and warrant went beyond that range. After the warrant was granted, law enforcement received information from AT&T. So this new information is included in the affidavit for a new search warrant. So for a new warrant sought. Oh, here. Yeah, thank you. So this new information is included in the affidavit for a new warrant sought for both account information as well as a pen trap for Mr. Kohberger's phone. And remember, this is what Cy testified to, which is we were asking, well, Payne, when did you start writing up that second search warrant? Thanks. And he said, oh, when I got the first one back, I started writing up the second one. And it's like, yeah, exactly. So you didn't do a test drive then with the information that you had to see where everything was, right? Because how did you just wrote this warrant, you wrote in this warrant all these things, but yet you didn't, like, where are you getting your information from? AT&T doesn't say, this is the path of Bryan Kohberger. Here you go. Go ahead, type up this information now and we'll send you something else. That's not how that works. He did this within like Eastern Standard Time too, because AT&T gives you your records. But like if you're trying to get something, it goes based on Eastern Standard Time zone. So, so again, this exhibit / affidavit was like the previous warrant signed by Corporal Payne. The basis facts Corporal Payne used to support the search were essentially the same, but with the following added. So in order to get the pen, trap, and trace, this is what was added. So cell tower records did not show Mr. Kohberger was in Moscow at the time of the murders. In law enforcement's experience, however, people committing crimes typically turn off their phones. Number 2, the new information received from the previous warrant, according to FBI special agents that specialize in the analysis of historical cell sites, showed that on November 13, 2022, at approximately 2:42 a.m., Mr. Kohberger's phone was utilizing cellular resources that provide coverage to his apartment in Pullman. They support the idea that he left his apartment and went south. They supported the phone being off. They support at 4:48 a.m. that the phone is south of Moscow, Idaho, near Blaine. The phone utilizes resources that make their way back to Pullman, coinciding with a white Elantra seen on some surveillance there. This is crazy. And this is all that this is it. So the argument is that Mr. Kohberger has a privacy interest in his AT&T account information protected by Article 1 Section 17. So this is one of the big things. A person challenging a search has the burden of showing that he or she had a legitimate expectation of privacy in the item or place searched. That involves a two-part inquiry, which is number one, did the person have a subjective expectation of privacy in the object of the challenge search? And two, is society willing to recognize that expectation as reasonable? Here at stake are records for a telephone account. The records the state sought included identifying information about account owner and their devices, device purchase information, email address associated with the account, call detail records including text messages and data activity, cell site information, historical location information, cloud data, timing advance reports. The Fourth Amendment has generally refused to acknowledge a privacy interest in records held by a corporation about communications they facilitate. However, in Carpenter, the Supreme Court declined to extend the third-party doctrine to historical cell sites records and cell site location information. In this matter, Corporal Payne specified in his request that the purpose for gathering the information from the AT&T records was to aid in determining the location of the 8458 phone and the white Elantra in efforts to determine whether the white Elantra is the same vehicle identified in the surveillance videos. So how does this have anything to do with historical data? Like, it's specific to that time period, which would be, November 12th to 14th. Pursuant to Carpenter, to the extent that information was being gathered for the movements of the vehicle, Mr. Kohberger has a privacy right protected by both the Fourth Amendment and Article 17. Article 1, Section 17. In the wake of Carpenter and the court's recognition of the abundant records maintained on everyone in modern society, it is questionable whether the third-party doctrine is still good law. However, this court need not consider whether the Fourth Amendment needs updating because Idaho has already recognized an expectation in the privacy of whom we dial and the context of text messages we send. See State v. Thompson. Therefore, to collect the records law enforcement requested in this matter, it had to have a valid warrant. The affidavit submitted, so we're not disputing here. Yes, y'all can have this information, but you need a valid warrant. And your valid warrant comes from the affidavit submitted in support of the application for the issued search warrant recklessly or intentionally omitted material information. And this is when Cyray's talking about when he took the stand. Well, do you only have like 15% of the data? Something like that, right? So when we're talking about writing up, you get AT&T's return, and then as you get that return, you're writing up for the second search warrant right after the first one. You didn't even test it. What are you doing? You don't even know what that information is coming back as. And it relies on information gained in violation of the Constitution and fails to provide probable cause for the requested search. So, for a search warrant to be valid, the judge issuing the warrant must rely on an affidavit or affidavit sworn to before the judge or by testimony under oath and recorded that establish the grounds for issuing the warrant. Any discrepancy between the items for which there was probable cause and their description in the search warrant requires suppression. So the challenge pursuant to this section of the motion is separately laid out in Mr. Kohberger's motion for hearing under Franks v. Delaware. The motion and proffer are incorporated but not repeated herein. So it's like, go there to get the rest of what basically they did. The third thing is that the search warrant fails to provide specific, you have to be specific here. What are you looking for? What in particular are you looking for? Law enforcement could search and seize in Mr. Kohberger's AT&T account. A search warrant must be particular enough so that as to what it is being taken, nothing is left to the discretion of the officer executing the warrant. And here they give the examples of is the warrant for Mr. Kohberger's AT&T account lacks appropriate. It's just, look at this. All identifying information of the account, all information about the creation of all information about the account means all call records, all text messages, all. Get the fuck up out of here. You can't just do that. All. All of what? All of what? All. All data now in the cloud. Get out of here. The warrant and the affidavit are not only all-encompassing, they are duplicative, often repeating things to be searched and seized. The only limitation in scope is that the property be related to the homicides in this matter. This warrant covers a scope of 6 months' time. Jurisdictions across the nation agree that such broad warrants are problematic, but found that trying to fix that issue via more particularized warrants has its own issues. Still, this case presents a warrant that is overbroad under the long-standing principles of Article 1, Section 17, and the Fourth Amendment. And then this is just where Ann's team is just crushing it and showing all the different case laws. And here you can go about it this way, or this is how, but everything's leading back to like, it's all problems. And when I do like a deep dive, oh wait, I want to end this 2:48. Yep. I want to end this at 1:30. Shit. Give it up for the Ohio Supreme Court though. We have good case law over here. I want to highlight the last piece of this, though, which is we'll stop there. I'll talk about his arrest. I want to save the big stuff, which is, well, the last thing I want to save is like just arresting him and him collecting his DNA and stuff like that. But what do you guys think? You guys think this is, there's all the, it's all Google, AT&T. How about the FBI just getting caught? Becca Barlow. Who's this? How about, here we go. There's just Mowry going and getting some training so he can testify. Shut up, man. How did I find that? I have no idea why him. Oh, muted? There shouldn't be anything muted. I'm not muted. I think no one is above the law. How about just why? How about that? Why are all these problems? They told us this stuff takes time. I mean, I hate to say this, but like, who was putting the pressure on for them to arrest somebody so quickly? Not I. Not you people. Who was calling them every day? The school? University of Idaho? The Gonsalveses? Think about it. Why do we have these? What's the problem here? How did this happen? How did this happen? Yeah, I believe it's because they've been violating people's rights and they can just get away with it. And then here, this just became the case. It was like, okay, enough's enough. When people want to say to me that, Lana, this is just a defense attorney doing their job. Okay. So do you think it's just a defense attorney's job to literally say that the FBI and that all these police officers, and they're naming names, were involved in this misconduct? Do you think that that's normal? I don't think it's normal. Copy, cut, and paste, interchanging affidavits, interchanging words that are, okay, now this is what you're saying, and now I'm just adding on to this. But Payne says that Bryan went in a big loop-de-loop, and Blaker's saying that Bryan went straight home, and that's why we're going to find all this shit at the apartment. Okay. And this all goes back to, like, how did you guys even start investigating Bryan Kohberger in the first place? Well, because we got a tip from the FBI. Who did IgG? What? What are you talking about? You guys did investigative genetic genealogy right out the gate on this case? Why would you go against every protocol in that's known to the police department and do that? People want to say, Lana, you don't know protocol. Lana, you don't know procedure. Well, I can tell you that it's definitely not procedure to go use investigative genetic genealogy before you fucking do anything else. I can promise you that that's not what says, hey guys, when you're at a fucking crime scene and you got your technicians that come in and they process it, and you go to the lab and you're going to be coinciding and be talking with a lab expert, and you guys are deciding if you guys should be using swabs on the skin, or if we should be trying to pull fingerprints on something, because they could both have, should we try to get a latent print here, or should we try to swab it? Let's go this route because it's probably going to give something better. Can you imagine that you all sit into a room and say, hey, let's call up one of these third-party labs. We submitted all these DNAs. There's 4 or 5 unknown male profiles, one of which is on this sheath. The other 3 or 4, they're at the crime scene. We don't know where they're at, though, but they're there. But let's go and hit up one of these third-party labs to do investigative genetic genealogy. Wait, what? Yeah, let's not look at any of the returns yet on any of our search warrants. let's not interview hardly anybody. Y'all know that would never happen, right? You would never be sitting around a round table saying that shit and saying, but then here, guess who comes out and says it? Steve Gonsalves. He's like, why aren't they employing these familiar DNAs? Come on, it's 2000. Like, go out there and use familiar DNA. Well, that means to tell me that Steve Gonsalves knew that none of those profiles got a hit in CODIS. So none of these fuckers are in CODIS. All right. Then you got the cops that are just driving all over trying to snatch up all these people's DNAs, right? Typically just, going and grabbing people's DNA and doing what with it. Well, let's see if we can get a hit next to anything that we got. But we're not gonna like investigate the fraternities or the sororities or look into the victims at all and see who the hell they've been in contact with, see who their life has come across. We're not gonna do any of that stuff, but we're gonna go straight to when our shit comes back from the Idaho State Lab. Oh, hey, you know what? We just asked you to work on IgG stuff, but you know what? Stop doing what you're doing. Send it to the FBI. Send it to the FBI, and they're gonna start working with whoever they've trained to do. But don't send all of them. Just send the sheath. We're gonna just get that profile over there, and we're gonna just don't worry about the other ones though. What? You guys, this would never be a conversation that you were having with a bunch of fucking detectives this on day 5. And then this would happen then. Ready? Okay, Bryan Kohberger's name comes back. Okay. Who's Bryan Kohberger? Oh, he's from Pennsylvania, but he just moved here recently. He's in the PhD program. Yada yada yada. Okay. All right, well, we have a cell tower here. We have this. What's his phone number? Well, actually, we looked him up. He got pulled over a couple different times, and he filled out a ticket and put his phone number on there. So here, use this phone number and see if you got a hit. Oh no, no, his number isn't in the system for during that 2 to 4, whatever the fuck time frame. They did 3 to 5. That's what would immediately come back. Your hit on that. Okay, he's not using resources in the Moscow area from 3 to 5. His phone. Then you would have to talk now think about this. Think about you take this to somebody like, well, here we got it from the FBI because they did this IgG stuff. Well, all right, well, who is this guy? Why aren't they supposed to go and get the guy's DNA and then test it to the sample? Why don't they get out there and go get the guy's DNA and test it against the sample that they have? Go get his DNA and go test it against the sample. That's how you're supposed to check your work in the investigative genetic genealogy world. You don't just get to run and go give the FBI a name, or you go in whatever agency you're working with, you just run and give them a name. You have to check your work. And how you check your work is you go and get the DNA of the couple names that you got, and then you're testing that. Then you'd be sending it to a lab to run the DNA against the sample, which is what they pulled from the sheath. So why didn't they do that? They're following this motherfucker all over. Why didn't you do that? That's what you're supposed to do. That's what I wanted to find everything out about how you're supposed to go about. If you are hired, even if you work for the FBI and you do IgG for them, okay, Like, somebody would have taught you the ways to do this. So how do you do this? Well, yeah, Lana, you don't go and just give them a name. I have to test. Like, when I had that name, I'd be like, okay, now I would have to go wherever this person is and go get their DNA. Like, it's from like a Starbucks cup, like a cup, or, you know, wherever they would be going, and they would discard stuff, and I would try to pick it up that way. I've picked up stuff from going and getting cigarette butts, you know? Okay. And then what do? Well, then I send it to my lab, and then they run it, and then they compare it to what I have. And that's how you get a match. Yeah. But you have to make sure that, you know, because there could be a time if you get the wrong. So let's say that you picked up something that was incorrect. Like, you grabbed the cup because the guy was there with two people, and you got the wrong cup. And so when you go and send that to the lab, and it comes back as, it's going to come back as a match or not. And if it comes back as not a match, you're thinking, what the hell? But this is but my work is right. You know, I traced it all the way back. I was able to connect this person. And it's like, well, maybe you picked up the wrong cup. Go get more DNA. Maybe you fucked it up when you got the wrong cup, and it came back as not a match. So go back out there, go get this DNA, send it back to the lab. They test it. Okay, now you have a match. Then that's when I tell the law enforcement agency that I am working with that here's the names I had, and I went and tested, like, then I obtained their DNA, and I had the lab tested against it, and this is what it came back as a hit. It was a hit on this person. It matched this person, and those other people, it was not a match. So here I'm excluding people from the tree, and I got you an answer. Okay. So why wasn't that done in this case? Well, I have no fucking clue. Why would you? I mean, look at all this stuff. Who was typing? Who was writing this stuff up? Who? Bryan Kohberger's name came up nowhere ever in anything. And the people in Indiana, they're telling me that you would never do this. We would never do. Abby and Libby, we didn't do anything like this. We've had the case for 7 years, and we didn't do anything like this. Isn't that wild? Unbelievable. I don't even know what to say about it. I just want to say, like, when you want to talk about procedure, I can tell you that going and employing investigative genealogy out the gate, that's not procedure. And then when you keep getting stuff, when you're like, okay, we're going to get his car, there's going to be blood in there, or there's going to be, trace. Nope. All right, when we get his digital stuff, he's going to be following these victims. He's going to be, he would have searched them. Nope. All right, his apartment, like, he would have showered and blood transfer something. Nope. All right, the friends. He was friends with some of their friends. Nope. All right, we finally got something. He's hitting off of 12 different times cell towers in Moscow. Yep, there you go. Okay. And we believe that during crimes, you shut your phone off. So we're just going to say that he shut his phone off, and that's why it wasn't on the cell tower. Okay. He's been in the area. There's a car that's circling around 4 times. That, how are we even saying that the crimes happened at that time? I have no idea. Oh, wait, Dylan, she saw somebody in a frozen state, shock, blah. So, yep, it happened at 4. We don't even know that answer. They don't even know that answer. You know, Dylan's going to get 8 alive on that. Depends on how hard Ann Taylor wants to go at her. If I was to come on alive and present you guys with all of this on how, like, hey guys, guess what? The Idaho4 case has been unsolved for 2 years, but guess what? Guess what I did? I found the killer, and the killer is Bryan Kohberger. And let me tell you how I got there. And I start showing you guys all this shit that the government's showing us. You would say that I was crazy. You would say that I'm a conspiracy theorist. You would say that, wait a second, there's nothing linked. Like, but here, there's just this sheath that had DNA on it, allegedly, and it's partial, and nobody else's DNA in a 2 girls stabbed to death in a bed that's super small, and there's only one profile, and it's I don't even know, on the brass snap. You guys would be like, what do you guys think I was crazy? You guys would think I was crazy. I would think I was crazy. Because if I said this to my friends, they'd be like, this dude just moved there. He doesn't even know these people. Yeah, but he was becoming a serial killer, guys. I'm telling you, he was becoming a serial killer. I mean, just look at him. He looks like a serial killer, doesn't he? He's an incel. He was so jealous of those fucking kids. You guys would all be saying that I was crazy. You'd be saying, you can't just say this stuff. Well, the government is. So wait, there's a car going around in Pullman at 2:42, and you just think that that's his car? Yeah, I just think it's his car. Well, why do you think that? Because he drives something that looks just like it. Okay. And he was using his phone at the same time that car was being driven around. What? Yeah, he was on his phone at 2:42 in the morning. So that has to be him in that car. You guys, that's fucking crazy. That is crazy. That is nuts. You guys would be like, what, Atlanta? There's just a car that's driving around. It's white. Yeah, and it's driving around at 2:42 in the morning, and he's on his phone in the same area. That has to be him. Okay. And then let me tell you what happens then next. You would say, okay, did you go like, yeah, and then I went and got the AT&T records. Well, if I leave a couple points of data out, like if I don't put those points in, then I can kind of show that his car like went the loop that I want it to go. But if I put all the points of data in, he's going the other way. So like I'll just leave out those points of data, and then it will just like match up. And you'd be like, wait, what? You can't just do that. So his car didn't go that way. It went a different way, right? Well, yeah, but if I leave these points out of the data that I want to show, it'll show that he just went in the circle that I'm making up. Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, no, you can't do that. Well, that's what they did. They knew that all the data wasn't there, and they only used partial data to make up this fucking loop-de-loop. And then somehow they want to connect that the white car in Pullman is the white car in fucking Moscow an hour later. And wait, there's all those cameras driving from Pullman to Moscow. None of them catch Bryan Kohberger. No, can you believe that? Like, he is such a lucky bastard. But yet, the same camera catches him 4 times just circling the house? Yeah, what a dipshit. Ah! Get out of here! No, Lana, he is a serial killer. He is really smart. And if we don't violate his rights, he's going to kill again. And then I'm like, fuck. Jeez. I don't want him to kill again. Okay, just do it. Just do whatever you need to do. We can't have him killing again. And I need to have my enrollment up. My name is Scott Green over here. And my enrollment's going down. I just became the president a couple years ago. I said this was the safest place. I wanted to make it safe again. And here kids are getting murdered now. Okay. I think if Bryan Kohberger is guilty, they didn't have to do all of this. And they just needed to do it right. But they couldn't handle the pressure. They couldn't handle the pressures of what? So this case, the FBI is going to go down, and Moscow Police Department, and Idaho State Police, and Pennsylvania State Police. They're all going to go down because of the sloppy work of them hiding how they fuck our rights up, right? And then here, a killer is going to go free. You guys, this ain't the first case that they do this shit. It ain't going to be the last. Well, maybe it will be the last, but... this is wild, but... so because we needed to arrest within 6 or 7 weeks, we just lost our case. So who does that come back on? If Bryan Kohberger is the guy, you guys were surveying him. You guys had eyes on Bryan Kohberger. He ain't gonna fucking hurt anybody. Hey, we got to do this the right way. If it's going to take a year, it's going to take a fucking year. All right? But if we don't do this the right way, then this is what's going to happen. Imagine that. All I know is if I came out on my show and just started talking about all this stuff the way that they talk about it, and thinking that this is how they're connecting dots to read that affidavit, just like they did in the Richard Allen affidavit. What? They enhanced a video that you couldn't even see on pixelated shit. And claim that video is Richard Allen abducting 2 children. Unfucking believable. You get nothing of the sort from that. Just like a car going around a house 4 times, whoever's car that is, I can't say that the killer is in that car just because they circled the house 4 times. I don't even know if that's the same car that's circled. And we don't even know who's in the car. But it's like if the police say something, we have to say, yep, it has to be true because the police said it. Get the fuck out of here. The police lie to us all the time. They're allowed to lie to us all the time. Lana can be my lawyer anytime. Yeah, we're just going to have somebody sitting second chair that knows what the fuck they're talking about. I'll just argue with the best of them. Oh my God, didn't realize I was in a Kohberger love chat. Who's loving on Kohberger? I'm loving on our rights, Mindy. Wake up, Shug. This has nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger. Fuck. This has to do with Lana Oriani. My rights. The 819 people that are in here, your rights. Bend over and just keep taking it up the ass from fucking the government. Go right ahead. What I know, what a dumb comment. I agree, Kate. Fucking dumbasses. Complete fucking morons that run their cocksuckers. There's Mindy. Now she's opening her mouth. Now she wants the government to take it up there. Sounds good, Mindy. It's a love chat about our rights and yours. Yeah, girl. I truly don't get it. We don't put people in solitary confinement for 13 months and see what we can get them to say before we have trial. You don't get to go have, fake federal grand juries that you're going to do something with it like you ain't and use your information that you obtain from your federal grand jury and hand it over to the state folks to use to get their information for their warrants. That that's a no-no. You have to go get that approved by the courts. You can go get a court order for that shit. Oh, but what do these idiots do? No. We're not going to do that. They never thought in a million thousand years that Bryan Kohberger would ever have an attorney that would actually do their job. Yeah, and I don't blame them for thinking that because nobody's opening up discoveries, because nobody's going at the government, the police, who keep violating people's rights. Nobody's doing anything about it. They're just doing whatever they want, and nobody is taking it back to them. And now here's a case where oh yeah, it's on. And there ain't no way Hitler can look at this shit and just say none of this happened. It happened. This happened. His rights, our rights were violated. And what's Hitler going to do about it? This isn't about a suit and tie that he can wear for pretrial. Okay? This is about the goddamn Constitution. What are you going to do about it, Hitler? Are you going to uphold our rights? Meanwhile, mainstream media just is going to continue to keep pumping out bullshit. Mainstream media won't talk about this. How is this not the number one thing that's being talked about right now? The Idaho4 case, when it goes to trial, will be the biggest trial that will hit for years that have happened before us and after us right now. It'll be the biggest trial. So why aren't people talking about this? Everybody that's covering the Idaho4 case, because guess what? It goes against the narrative. It's a big problem. I'm going to show you guys how much mainstream media is talking about it. Let me show you guys this. The media can't talk about it. They help spread the lies and propaganda for the state and law enforcement. Yeah. And tell me, wouldn't you be so pissed if you were Brian Eden and got used like a little water boy? Somebody told you that and you put it out there. And it was an officer. It was a police officer. And you're going to protect it. Ew, it's so gross. Like, fucking love it, though. Love it. But here, I'm going to show you what this is when you want to talk about what mainstream media, what they're talking about at the moment. So, Bryan Kohberger Frank's request. Okay, here we go. Bryan Kohberger's lawyer challenges DNA evidence in murder trial. Right? This is, here we go.
Now, Kohberger's defense.
Okay.
Also this morning, the defense for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death, is trying to get key evidence in the case thrown out. NBC's Dana Griffin is here to explain. Dana, good morning.
Joe, good morning. In a lengthy new.
Dana's here to try to explain. Wait, but I have to back this up. Where does it say that there's key evidence that's trying to be tossed? Okay. If it's key evidence that's tossed, I mean, but where in there are the words key? We want key evidence tossed. Bryan Kohberger's lawyers are trying to get key evidence tossed. What key evidence is there against Bryan Kohberger? That's my first question. Look at Gino. Love Gino.
Also this morning, the defense for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death, is trying to get key evidence in the case thrown out. NBC's Dana Griffin is here to explain. Dana, good morning.
Joe, good morning. In a lengthy new motion, Bryan Kohberger's defense team now hoping to keep out the most critical evidence to the prosecution's case, including the DNA evidence that allegedly links him to the crime, as well as his digital footprint. His lawyers say Kohberger's constitutional rights were violated when police used DNA evidence they say was obtained illegally from garbage outside Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania a month after the murders, and said there was a genetic match to the single source of male DNA found on that knife sheath left at the crime scene. Now, the suppression brief arguing that without that DNA, there is no case, no request for his phone records, surveillance of his parents' home, no DNA taken from the garbage out front. They now want that evidence as well.
Has she said investigative genetic genealogy yet? Has she used those words yet? Okay, so 60 seconds into this, because this truly is about investigative genetic genealogy. That's what this is all surrounding. So 60 seconds into this, has she used the words investigative genetic genealogy? Let's see if I missed it.
Also this morning, the defense for Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death, is trying to get key evidence in the case thrown out. NBC's Dana Griffin is here to explain. Dana, good morning.
Joe, good morning. In a lengthy new motion, Bryan Kohberger's defense team now hoping to keep out the most critical evidence to the prosecution's case, including the DNA evidence that allegedly links him to the crime, as well as his digital footprint. His lawyers say Kohberger's constitutional rights were violated when police used DNA evidence they say was obtained illegally from garbage outside Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania.
That's not even right.
The murders, and said there was a genetic match to the single source of male DNA found on that knife sheath left at the crime scene. Now, the suppression.
How is there this genetic match, Dana? 49-second mark. What? There's this genetic match. What? Genetic match to what? What are we matching everything to? How did we get to Bryan Kohberger, though?
Brief arguing that without that DNA, there is no case, no request for his phone records, surveillance of his parents' home.
Without what DNA? What is she talking about? You're not even, this isn't right. Dana.
Left at the crime scene. Now, the suppression brief arguing that without that DNA, there is no case, no request for his phone records, surveillance of his parents.
Is she insane? That's not what this is.
Parents' home, no DNA taken from the garbage out front. They now want that evidence, as well as his phone and Google records, kept from the jury. Kohberger is accused in the November 2022 quadruple stabbing deaths of University of Idaho students Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. At the time, he was studying criminology at nearby Washington.
This is explained completely wrong.
Crime scene. Now, the suppression brief arguing that with
the suppression brief arguing what? There's how many of them? There's not one suppression brief, okay? There is a handful of separate suppression motions, okay? There is the genetic genealogy motion that was sealed, so you haven't seen that. And the Franks is sealed. And then there's 12 individual filings. There isn't just some one big filing.
Without that DNA, there is no case. No.
Wrong. Without the IgG, there is no case, Dana. Not without his DNA, there is no case. Without the investigative genetic genealogy, there is no case, Dana. It is not the DNA, Dana. It's the investigative genetic genealogy that produced a SNP profile, Dana. But when you want to explain it like this, you're confusing every fucking person, and this is wrong.
After the murders and said there was a genetic match to the single source of male DNA found on that knife sheath left at the crime scene. Now, the suppression brief arguing that without that DNA, there is no case, no request for his phone records, surveillance of his parents' home, no DNA taken from the garbage out front.
Dana, you must not be aware that on December 23rd, honey, they didn't have Bryan Kohberger's DNA when they got the AT&T records, Dana. I'm going to need you to read, comprehend, and then report. Because this isn't doing anything. It's, in fact, I mean, what the fuck?
They now want that evidence as well as his phone and Google records kept from the jury. Kohberger is accused in the November 2022 quadruple stabbing deaths of University of Idaho students Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. At the time, he was studying criminology at nearby Washington State University. A judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. Prosecutors have until December 6th to respond. A hearing is scheduled in January to address this latest legal battle.
I'll be there in person. Hopefully you're there too, Dana. Hopefully it'll help you comprehend. But none of this is what she is saying is accurate. Okay.
Now, Kohberger's defense was successful in getting the trial moved from Moscow, where the murders occurred, to a county with a larger jury pool.
Okay, so what are we talking about? It's like, why isn't she talking about all this individual stuff, like his parents' house being raided for what? A no-knock warrant. I mean, I can't even. Dana did not understand the assignment. Total fail, Dana. I mean, I have to call you. Dana, I'm going to call you up and be like, Dana, why are you under the impression that the DNA came before the AT&T warrants? I'm really confused. You've really confused me. What's up, Heavy Metal Rehab? Okay. What is up? Good to see you in here. I'm sorry, but they're getting paid. These people are getting paid to report, and this is incorrect information. This is wild. Dana, who are you getting this from? Well, at least you guys tried to report. Look what it says. Kohberger's lawyers challenge DNA evidence in murder trial. The fuck out of here. That's not even what they're doing. They're not challenging the DNA evidence, you guys. The DNA is part of like what they were able to obtain from all the other fuckerage that happened way before that. Like, I can't even. I'm just like, and here these people are getting paid. Aren't you supposed to know what you're talking about if you're getting paid? But I guess mainstream media doesn't give a shit if you know what you're talking about or not, just as long as we're just going to give you a script. Go read it. It's just wild. I understood the assignment, Dana. Let's see if you can. I understood the assignment. Here we go. Uh-oh, Dana. Dana. There you go. Me and Dana. She understood the assignment. All right, guys, on that note, peace out, you guys. I can't even. I can't even hit the thumbs up on your way out. This is wild. How did they claim to know he was separating his garbage inside the house? That just was said by mainstream media, who allowed police to give them this information, which clearly is not in any police reports. This is just this. It's sad. It's sad because if he truly is the killer, I don't think that anybody should. I don't want murderers to be free. Fuck out of here. I want better people in positions of power in government with our country. Like, that's what this is about. It's about our rights, and it's about stop promoting fucking jackasses. Just because you're in a patrol car and you can write tickets does not mean you can be a detective and use your brain. Okay? It does not mean that you can connect dots A to B to Z rather quickly. You just don't get to become, hey, sometimes people that are secretaries, like, that's what they're good at. They're not running the company in 4 years. Okay? So it's just wild. But peace out, Girl Scouts. Take care. Dana, you trash! Dana, it's okay. Let's let you come back.
If you need a lot of brains,
Get it right.
you're going to be
Get it right, Dana.
in trouble.
This November 29th.